Ready to do this?
We are ready.
All right, buddy. Hello and welcome back to the Movie Marathon Podcast, a place where we watch movies and then talk about them. My name is Dixon, your master of ceremonies, or maybe I can say your Jedi master of ceremonies.
Ooh.
And I'm here with my co-host Gabe, and we're here to discuss our first TV show on the pod, The Mandalorian. Gabriel, how are we doing today?
We're doing very well. I feel the force. It's flowing through me. Feel
gotta
good.
love when the force is flowing through you. As we like to mention, we are not experts by any means, as much as we would like to be. We're just friends that like to talk about movies and shows that we love, or maybe movies and shows that we've never seen before. We're watching for the first time. So this is in no way a definitive guide, but we hope that this will give you a good base layer to go off of for the movies coming out soon. So like I said, this is our first show that we're breaking down, and we may do more TV shows in the future, but for the most part, we're going to be sticking mainly to movies for this podcast. Obviously, the Movie Marathon Podcast, we should be doing movies. But however, this episode is going to be based on the show, The Mandalorian, to get you ready for the movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is coming out on May 22nd. Gabe, what's your hype level for this movie?
A mixed hype level, I'll be honest. I had zero hype for it. We'll talk about all this, I'm sure, but take me back to the start of Mando and I would be much more hyped about it. And I'm not necessarily like a season 3 hater, more or less, but the show kind of just ran its course a little bit. So I was surprised when they were going to do a movie instead of a season 4, even though it really could have ended after Boba, but well, again, we'll get there. But my hype, I'm not going to use the word intensified because it didn't intensify, but I got a little more hypeful for the movie after rewatching the show. I hadn't done a full rewatch. I've only done pieces here and there, but there's things I like about it. There's things I'm nostalgic about now, and then there's things I don't like about the show, but I feel okay about it. Definitely not as I would for a Star Wars movie, even a sequel trilogy movie. If it was a regular Star Wars movie.
What is a regular Star Wars movie now at this point?
George Lucas coming back.
Oh, my God. Imagine a Lucas produced movie with Dave Filoni directing. Like, come on.
It's funny that you ask what is a perfect Star Wars movie, because I don't know anymore, because what is that, episode 10? But then how did they do that in a way that I enjoy? I mean, they could, but there are obviously ideas on the table that The Hunt for Ben Solo was pretty sick Soderbergh idea that they didn't push through. That would have been cool. What else? Starfighter, we'll see next year. I'm sure we'll cover it. I'm probably more excited for Starfighter than I am for Mando coming out this week.
I agree with you on that, and part of the reason for that is something we're going to talk about in this in a couple of scenes and maybe towards the end. I think that aerial battles and aerial fights in Star Wars are the key to a good Star Wars movie. I think some of the scenes in this show, some of the best scenes in this show, are the dogfights between like the Razor Crest and TIE fighters when he gets the N1 ship and Boba.
The Star Wars.
Exactly. But some of them are so well done and they're so cool. And I think if you take that out, like, I just think those are the best scenes in any kind of Star Wars movie. Like you think about like the highlights or like the best, climaxes of Star Wars movies, and most of them involve some sort of dogfight. So I think Starfighter has a potential to really bring that back into the Star Wars universe.
I definitely see what you're saying about dogfights, and I can't disagree, and I don't disagree in any way, but I think it's the lightsaber battles that really make it Star Wars.
True.
And I loved Andor. I don't love it as much as other people liked it, but I almost had to come around to Andor a little bit. And part of it is just the movie or the show is just a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I did love Andor more than the recent properties, but it's still not my favorite. But I guess now I'm losing my but the thing that I missed the most and didn't fit Andor's show, which I get, but lightsaber battles was the thing that I really wanted. And Kenobi had that, but I had my own issues with Kenobi. but I like that. I like that more than other people did, I think, but I never really wanted to rewatch it. And a part of the problem that I have with so much, and I don't want to just say it's like quote unquote Disney Star Wars. I don't want to over encompass it with everything because I think that's not really the way. But since our recent Star Wars stuff, the plot choices, a lot of the decisions made, I would have just gone a different way. You think about the sequel trilogy, certain decisions made in The Force Awakens, I would have done differently. Then Last Jedi I would have also done differently. Rise of Skywalker, again, it's like insane. And then Mando too. There's certain things that I enjoyed, but certain things that I think that should have been pretty different. And even now we're hearing, you talk about the fourth movie or the fourth season, quote unquote, movie. I hear it's just a bottle episode. I hear it's just a really long self-contained Mando episode, which I don't have a problem with. But if you're going to make a movie and release it, this isn't like a Mando special presentation on Disney Plus. The show has threads and inklings and teases and connections to the mainline saga, to the sequel trilogy, to the original trilogy. It happens start, what is it, 5 years after the return. So they place it there for a reason. Filoni loves all his cameos and loves this world. They're going to make a movie, the first Star Wars movie in whatever it is, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And they're going to self-contain it. They're not going to connect it to anything. They're not going to do more. I don't know. That hurt my hype. So it's frustrating.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like even if you're going to contain the movie within the show and within the plot lines that you've already created within the Mandalorian show, why not try something different with a movie, even if it doesn't connect to past Star Wars stuff or the nostalgia of the original movies? Like, why not try something a little bit different that might hit a little bit better in a theatrical setting or in a movie setting versus a TV show? Like, you could do something different and still connect it to the show, but give audiences something that they're not expecting versus just being like, we're going to just combine these storylines from 6 episodes that we were going to do and just put it into one theatrical release.
I don't want to get too speculative, and we can do this on our next episode if it's what we fear.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern is that, let's say, the Mando seasons are like 8 episodes or something like that. And they usually have these bottle episodes, 4 or 5 of them, about half the series, where they are in many ways self-contained. Maybe the top and tail, the beginning and the end, are part of the main plot. Mando gets lost, or they have to go to this planet to get something, MacGuffin or whatever it is. But what if they just took the 4 bottle episodes and combined them and took out the main line, and that's your Mandalorian and Grogu movie? So, yeah, again, I don't want to be speculative. We could do this in a couple of days when we see the film.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, Mandalorian, it's a tough one. And it shouldn't be, but it's a tough one.
I agree. I was going to preface this next statement by saying, dare I say we are huge Star Wars fans, but that whole conversation probably just sells it right there.
I'm just over here getting frustrated about it.
We haven't even started the episode yet. We're already talking about like the frustration that we have with the next movie.
Yeah, we're huge fans. I'm a huge fan.
Huge fans. And
you're a bigger fan than I am, and I'm a huge fucking Star Wars fan.
Absolutely. And we are huge fans. We do want to go into all the movies and the lore, and as much as we can in detail, we want to do it justice. So I think for purposes of this episode, we're going to try to just to stick to the show and just to stick to stuff that's important to be prepared for the movie that's coming out. But with that being said, I want to do a quick basic overview, Star Wars 101, just so you have a general idea of what's going on. So Star Wars was originally created by George Lucas, and I believe it can be broken down into 3 sections. You have the originals, the prequels, and the Disney era stuff. So the original movies, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, they came out the late 70s and early 80s. You have the prequel movies, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. They came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then you have the sequels and subsequent shows and standalone movies, I guess you would call them. They came
Star
out
Wars
after
story.
Star Wars story. That came out after Disney bought the rights to Lucasfilm in 2012, and they've been releasing since then to the present day. So The Mandalorian aired in November of 2019, which was about a month before The Rise of Skywalker came out, which was intended to be the end of like the Skywalker saga, which is interesting, right? When I was looking at that, I wanted to make sure I understood like the context of like, okay, when did the show come out in relation to the other movies? So it did come out before the last movie release. But Gabe, if you had to pick one era of Star Wars to watch exclusively, meaning you can't watch any of the others ever again, which era would you watch? And why is it the Disney era?
That's a hard question, actually, because the right answer is the original trilogy. Objectively, the right answer is the original trilogy. But we are prequels kids.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my nostalgia is for Revenge and Phantom and Attack. So that's a tough question. But I unfortunately, despite my love for the prequels, still have to say OT. I got to go original trilogy. You have to go Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire, and Return. There is no other answer.
For the longest time, Return of the Jedi was my favorite movie. When it was just the 6, Return was my favorite. And then I really grew to love Revenge of the Sith. I also love Revenge of the Sith. It's perfect. I also find myself casually watching the prequels more so than the original movies. Like I could just be like, I'm gonna throw on Attack of the Clones and just like have it on. More so than I'll be like, if I put on A New Hope, I'm sitting down and watching A New Hope. It's not just on the background. I'm taking the time to like rewatch it. So I feel like I would do prequels just because I can watch them more casually. But I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters when they re-released it last year. Like I'll also do that and sit there and really, really watch it. So I'd probably do prequels. Full on prequel kid right there.
Dude, so do you definitely know this story, but to refresh you, I saw the original trilogy back to back in theaters once with a couple of my coworkers.
Wow.
So it's like a crazy in theory, it sounds fun. It should be fun. But watching movies that you've seen before 100 times back to back in theaters, essentially burning your whole day. There were moments that were high and there were moments that were very low. I would say most of A New Hope was a high. I hadn't seen that in theaters probably since I was a kid, since 1997 when I saw the special editions, which at the time I remember I didn't know what it was and it was getting re-released. And my dad was like, "You never seen Star Wars?" It's like, "You would have shown me Star Wars." So no, show me Star Wars. And then we had went to see it. And then with my cousins, my family friends, we went and saw Empire. And then Return of the Jedi I actually had on VHS when someone bought me the box set. And that was the first time I saw it. But yeah, I love the prequels, kind of all of them, even though Attack has its big problems. I would say they probably, in some ways, are a little bit more rewatchable because they maybe aren't taken as seriously. So you could just like rewatchable in a way that you could just throw them on, where you have to like sit down and watch Empire. You can't just put on scenes, but
yeah, you can't just be doing something in the background and have just like the Darth Vader Luke scene just like casually playing. Like you're going to be sitting there watching it.
But I have nostalgia for really all of the originals, and in some ways, even though I really don't like the sequel trilogy, as I was saying before, there's things that I like and dislike about every movie, even the Lucas ones. There are things that are awful in Phantom, which is funny because Phantom is now the one that I watch the most because that's the one my son always wants to watch. So, having a 3-year-old's Phantom Menace is the best one.
Yeah,
that's the most fun. So he loves Jar Jar. He thinks he's hilarious. So in the sequel trilogy, there are things, that I'm nostalgic for now too, because before The Force Awakens, the excitement, you ask about the hype level, that I'm nostalgic for, just being that excited for it. And talk about lows after seeing Force Awakens, the lows, and convincing myself that I love that movie which I didn't. And, Eric was kind of touching on this once recently, in another episode, or maybe it was before we recorded. I don't remember. But I mean, we were all together, So, and Last Jedi, same thing. One more thing I'll say. So when I was doing the Mando rewatch, I don't remember why, but after I did the Mando rewatch, maybe it was on the 4th. And I'm not one of those people that necessarily like, oh, it's May the 4th, I have to like go watch Star Wars. But I think on this day, I know you are. Yeah, I know you are. But I think on this day, or maybe Theo and I were watching something. We were watching Phantom maybe, and then we had jumped over, and I was like, oh, let's throw on one of the Disney ones. Let's throw on Force Awakens. At least it looks cool. It moves well. The characters are good. Mm-hmm. The plot is its problem, obviously. But so we throw it on, and I was into it just because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it's captivating. The movie sucks you in.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I'm in the middle of Rise of Skywalker. So I've been just rewatching. I watched Force Awakens. I watched Last Jedi. I liked Force Awakens more, and I liked Last Jedi way less. It's a frustrating movie.
After these rewatches, these recent ones?
Just now, yeah. And I've rewatched the sequel trilogy a couple times. Mm-hmm. But Rise of Skywalker is the one I've probably seen the least, other than maybe like Solo. So I've seen Solo, I think maybe twice. Rise of Skywalker, I think I've seen 3 or 4 times. But in the middle, I'm halfway through Rise of Skywalker, and there's shit in there that I didn't even remember at all. Yeah. I remember the Sith Wayfinder and all that, but that plot is out of control.
It's all over the place. All over the place. You could tell that was a just disjointed connection of they had a plot, they stripped everything or parts of it that they didn't like, and they had another plot, and they were just kind of like, let's throw these together and see what sticks. And
I would actually love to, even if we don't do all Star Wars, I would love to just do Rise of Skywalker, because just to talk about the pre-production, how Colin Trevorrow's script got thrown out. Maybe we do like a special one of just like the what if of Rise of Skywalker, the Duel of the Fates.
Love that title too. It's just
it's so much frustration. Just the part of being a Star Wars fan is the frustration, because even if you go back to before we were born, the original trilogy people, the Gen Xers, all those people, they hate Lucas because of all the changes he made.
Yeah,
we love Lucas because we're prequel kids. So not kids anymore, but the term.
That's how we grew up. We grew up.
We're not original trilogy kids. When I say like the Gen Xers, those are, and obviously some other older people too, but that's more what they grew up with, just like we grew up with the prequels. So,
which is funny because I think like at the time Rise of Skywalker came out, the gap between the prequels and the sequel movies was the same as the originals. And
that's crazy.
The prequels. So it's like, it makes sense that we're upset about these movies the same way that the Gen Xers were about the prequel movies.
Do you think that I know that there were people during the original trilogy that were big, like Kylo, Reylo fans, there was that whole online following of that at the time. Yeah. But do you think that there's like Gen Z or Gen Alpha people that have the same nostalgia? And I'm talking like real nostalgia, not just like I'm talking hype nostalgia for the sequel trilogy. Do you think it will pop off the same way that there's prequel nostalgia and love for it?
Probably. I think that there will be, but I don't think it will be as big as it is for us with the prequels, Gen Xers for the original trilogy. Like there'll still be that group of people that has that initial, like they saw this movie as a kid and it was a space opera saga, and there was a lot of these characters that they're gonna like kind of grow up with. So I do think that there will be it, but it won't be as intense or with as big of a following as it is with the originals and the prequel movies.
It's tough, yeah, because they're so disjointed, especially that trilogy. Rogue One kind of stands on its own because I think so many people will watch that as a tale to revenge or as a beginning to New Hope, and the Andor lovers too will watch it as a part of that. So you have like that subset of just the Rogue One culture. Even Solo has its own. It's like a cult classic within Star Wars. Solo there are Solo lovers in there, and I want it to have a more of like a revisitation. maybe I need to revisit myself, but because like I visited Rogue One, and I find it to be a little bit of like a dour movie.
Mhm.
It's a little bit heavy. It's probably the heaviest of all the Star Wars movies. So in terms of rewatchability and fun, Rogue One is not one that I often want to come back to. And I love the Vader scene, but once you rewatch it like 30 times, you've seen it. So I know like all the beats.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily shitting on Rogue One. I don't jump into it the same way that I jump into the other ones. But
it's funny that you say that because those are the two Disney movies that I go back to.
Solo and Rogue
regularly.
One.
Rogue One, I think, is the best
You
thing.
love Rogue One. Yeah,
I think it's the
yeah.
best thing that Disney Star Wars has done. Disney
It
since they
might
bought
be.
Lucasfilm.
It might be.
I think it is, and I like Solo. I don't know if it's up there in quality as good as Rogue One, but I enjoy it. I also just love Han. He's my favorite character, in all of Star Wars. Han. But yeah, I still think it's a good movie. Every time I put it on, I'm thinking about the end of the movie before I get into it, and then I watch the beginning, and I'm like, oh, the beginning of this movie is rough. Like you gotta get through it to really get into the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Rogue One is great, and I agree. Like, to get back to your original point, there are going to be people that have nostalgic emotions towards these movies in this era because they're going to grow up with it. Like,
no matter what, yeah.
There are movies that we grew up and other generations have grown up with that only the people that grew up at that time are going to think are good. It's just going to be
plenty of bad movies that I love.
They're just like kind of like cult classics towards a specific age group. And I think that there's going to be that with these Disney movies, sequel movies. It's going to keep happening, but there just won't be as big of a following as there are with the other two.
I think part of it depends on what they do next. If they actually do that Rey movie, or they do the James Mangold movie that I think is supposed to happen prequels. It depends which way they go. Because I know they're doing Starfighter, and I think that's more or less like a Star Wars story style standalone. So I'm not sure. And I guess the same way Mando really is, even though they're not putting that tagline at the end, it's just like a little Star Wars story. So I'm not sure how they take it. But if there's something that could improve the sequel trilogy, The Hunt for Ben Solo, the Soderbergh movie that they had pitched that I don't know why they didn't do, that's something that could improve the sequel trilogy, because you could look back at Kylo's character and things like that. Well, I guess they didn't do it because they said Kylo's dead.
Because it was supposed to be after Rise.
Yeah. Well, is anyone ever dead?
True.
Is anyone ever really gone? Something like, what's the line?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
No one's ever really gone.
No one's ever really gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a great
I can talk
way.
I can talk about Mando nostalgia, but yeah, we should get back to the subject here.
Let's get back into the reason why we're here today. Talk about the Mandalorian. We are going to stick to our general outline, same that we do for the movies. We'll talk about the creation of the show, production, cast. We'll dive into the plot, and we'll give our final thoughts. We're going to keep everything the same. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
First, we're going to talk about the creation of the show. Creators of The Mandalorian are Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So Jon Favreau first gained attention as an actor. He was in films like Rudy, Swingers, makes a brief cameo appearance in The Sopranos for all my Sopranos fans out there.
That's right.
Swingers, yeah.
I actually hate that episode.
Yeah, I just remember that scene. I don't even remember anything else about that episode. But Swingers became cult hit, put him on the map, and he began directing shortly after that. He was doing smaller projects like Made, and then he had a hit movie with Elf. But his biggest turning point came when he directed Iron Man. He basically shaped the tone not only of that film, but of Marvel as a cinematic universe. And part of which came about his casting of Robert Downey Jr., which was a risky choice at the time, but is still paying off to this day. He also worked on The Jungle Book and The Lion King, which were both box office successes. The Lion King made over $1.5 billion globally.
Hate that one too.
But it's funny. So the technology that was used in The Lion King is actually kind of considered like the grandfather technology that will be used on The Mandalorian later on. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but it's just kind of interesting that how it started with The Lion King kind of made its way over to The Mandalorian. He eventually became the creator and executive producer, along with Dave Filoni, on The Mandalorian, and he's been involved in many different Star Wars projects since then. One, what is your favorite Favreau directed project? And two, do you see any of his sort of touch or his style anywhere in the show?
That's interesting. The second part of the question. Favorite Favreau project. I was calling out the ones that I hated. I love Swingers. I fucking love Elf, of course. It's one of the best movies ever made. And come on, Iron Man, MCU.
Yeah.
I say you're a bigger Star Wars fan. I'm probably a bigger MCU fan. This is, I have to say Iron Man. But initially, the first movie that came to my head was Elf, which is
dude,
funny,
that was mine. That was mine.
I fucking love Elf.
It's so good.
So good.
Yeah, I love Elf.
It's one of those. I'm going to say Elf.
It's a great movie. It still holds up. Like, I watch it every Christmas. It's not like my absolutely have to watch every Christmas movie, but I
every
throw it
Christmas
on.
I watch it.
It's like, yeah, Elf. Like, when I was going through it, I was like, oh, Elf is the easy choice for me.
To the second part of your question,
yeah,
no, I don't see any of his touches in The Mandalorian, which is interesting because I see it through lines in Swingers to Iron Man and even Elf, that jabby comedy. You have it. Mm-hmm. You don't have that at all in Mando, and that's interesting.
There's some scenes and some of the dialogue that I do feel is a little like quibby, like it's there's a little bit of like back and forth, but nothing to the extent of like Elf or Iron Man or anything to that level. But there is one scene, and I'll bring it up when we get there, that I was like, oh, that was 1,000% Favreau right there. So I'll bring it up when we get there. But yeah, I do agree. It's not as Favreau as some of the stuff that he directed himself. Now let's talk about Dave Filoni. He graduated from Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania with a degree in animation, and he was the director and storyboard artist for Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is what directly led to his recruitment by George Lucas to work on the Clone Wars. There was an animated movie that he was first on, and then he was on the subsequent series after it. When he got the call to interview with George, he thought it was a prank because his coworkers on Avatar knew how much of a Star Wars fan he was. So he just assumed that they were prank calling him about a job with Lucasfilm. So yeah, like I said, he was the director of the Clone Wars animated film, and then he was the supervising director for the entirety of the Clone Wars series, which I know I've said this to you a million times. I highly, highly, highly recommend Clone Wars. The first couple of seasons are a little tough because they're a little childish, but if you can get through them, there is some unbelievable stuff in the Clone Wars series. So I'm just going to put that out there again.
just to defend myself as a Star Wars fan, or to place where I am in the Star Wars echelon of fans, what separates, I think, the two of us is that you've watched all the TV shows, the cartoons, stuff like that. You watch Rebels also?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't watched those. I tried to watch some of the Clone Wars. I've seen maybe most of season 1 because of you and a couple other people were just like, dude, watch it. And same thing I hear from everyone is, yeah, it's tough to start, but once it gets rolling, kind of like most shows, honestly, you really can't stop. But it's been tough for me. And I know about Mortis and I know about some of the other episodes. I've seen some of those other clips and I like that, but maybe I'll get there one day. Maybe my 3-year-old will watch Clone Wars or something like that. That's not a bad route, but that's, I think, the separation between our Star Wars. But I know about these characters, and part of that is that Filoni fucked us and he made us have to be familiar with it. I didn't know who Ezra was or any of that shit, and then he just pops up, and I guess it's Mando season 3, or no, maybe it's Ahsoka, but one of them. There's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, Ezra's here. I'm like, fuck, now I gotta watch. And it's not even in Clone Wars; it's in Rebels. I was like, it's not even the show that I watch. But I know much. I know enough. I know the references. I know snips. I know stuff like that. So
yeah,
my toe is in the water for that. But that's probably the only part of Star Wars that I haven't really jumped into in that way.
I'll say it again. I highly recommend it, but I do agree, and I understand where you're coming from. There's some stuff with like in the MCU, like which Spider-Man was Daredevil in? Was it No Way Home? Far From Home? No Way Home. I knew. Actually, I don't even know if I knew. I think the person I was with was the one that was like, "Oh, that's Daredevil," and I was like, "Oh yeah." Like I didn't realize it when I first saw it, but I remember being like, "Oh, does that mean I have to go back and like watch all those shows now?" Which I am now. I've finally gotten to the point where I started watching like the Defenders and all that stuff. So I get what it's like to watch something and not be immediately. I also kind of felt that way with Mortal Kombat's.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
I
get it.
knew some of the characters and like a general understanding of what was going on, but there was some stuff that was happening, and I'm kind of like, "Oh, okay, that was kind of cool." And everybody in the movie theater was like, "Oh my god, he did the thing!" And I'm like,
Well, it's interesting in the differences in our fandom in Star Wars, which are very close, except for, like I said, this divided line of the shows. Really, where it plays a factor is in this Filoni era of Mando and Ahsoka, and not so much the Book of Boba Fett, but there's so many references. It's really built into the canon. I don't mind that these characters are now in live action because I can become more familiar with them if I'm never going to watch the other parts. But your experience is definitely better, where I get more of the or to make another MCU kind of reference or comparison. It's like the people who saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness but didn't see WandaVision. So you come in and you're like, wait, Wanda's bad or is she good? What the fuck is going on here? That's in some ways how I feel when I watch Mando or Ahsoka. I'm like, wait a minute, like what is this? And it's explained, but your viewing is just improved by seeing the other media and the other material.
And I think, I don't know this for sure, but I think part of the reason why they decided to bring in a bunch of characters and lore from the animated series into The Mandalorian was because that was something that kind of continued after the movies were over. So
makes sense, yeah.
After Revenge of the Sith, Clone Wars animated series came out, and then Rebels came out after that. But that was the only thing that was kind of like continuing the Star Wars story in between the Revenge of the Sith and Disney buying Lucasfilm. So I think that they were like, this is where we have a pocket of fans that have kind of kept with it and kept with Star Wars and these new characters that we kind of created. So how are we going to keep that going? Because both those shows ended. So like, how are we going to keep these fans that maybe just be on the animated show? We bring them into live action through the, sort of guise of the Mandalorian, and like have these characters just like pop up in different points and different parts. So
we all know that galaxy is the smallest galaxy. Everyone's related and everyone knows each other. So.
That's so true. So Leia, like we said, we're talking about Dave Filoni. He, on top of being the director of the animated Clone Wars and supervising director of the series, he was also executive producer of Rebels and supervising director for a few seasons. But since the Disney acquisition, Dave Filoni's been involved in basically everything Star Wars: Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew for, a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. And he's been involved in basically every one of the animated shows and the specials. He's known as the Lucas Encyclopedia because he worked with George Lucas so closely that he has an insane, extensive knowledge on the universe and lore and everything Star Wars. How much confidence do you have in his vision for Star Wars, and now with his basically takeover, full control of the IP? How much confidence do you have in Dave Filoni and the future of Star Wars?
High confidence. Yeah, I think Filoni's the right guy for the job. There's no one better. I wasn't a Kathleen Kennedy hater, how the all the online trolls are, but the record speaks for itself. I didn't really like, looking back on the work, I didn't really like where it went. So I can't say that I'm very hopeful for Filoni, but I can't say that I love all of his either. I just haven't seen less of it. If I'm going off of just really Mando, then it's hit or miss, or Mando and Ahsoka. Ahsoka was okay. I liked most of it, but it didn't really leave a major impact on me in any way. And a lot of the Disney Star Wars shows, everything except for really Mando season 1 feels very much like TV. I feel like there's a noticeable, and I don't know, it's called the void or the volume. I know you'll get to it, but I don't know if it's something with that or budgetary, but costuming, everything I feel like takes a drop, especially by Mando 3. Whereas you look at HBO shows, Max shows, whatever it's called, take a show like The Penguin, it looks like the fucking Batman.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like it. And that's what I think a lot of even the Marvel shows, and we talk, Marvel comes up way too much in our podcast in general, but today it makes sense because Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars. But
Yeah.
the Marvel shows kind of have the same drop off a little bit. It started looking film quality. WandaVision, Falcon looked good, even though that show was pretty rough, mostly because of COVID, but it wasn't great. But and then and Loki looked good too. But then there's just this drop off, and it looks just very much Disney Plus like plasticky.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the movie will look good, but it's I wish it could look better. I wish it could feel more like Star Wars in a different way than like TV Star Wars.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. I do have a pretty high confidence in Dave Filoni and his control over the Star Wars IP and Lucasfilm in general. One particular reason, I looked up basically what he was involved in and since the Disney acquisition and how much he was involved in everything. And most of it's been really good. The thing that really gets me is there's a interview that he did. I think it was after the first season. They had all the directors in a room. They were basically in on a circle table talking to each other about different episodes and storylines and how they, came about writing and directing these episodes or whatever. So they get to Dave Filoni and he's talking about basically the lore of the show, but the lore of Star Wars from the originals and the prequels. And he talks specifically about the fight between Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan at the end of Phantom Menace. And he talks about how significant that particular battle, that particular lightsaber fight is in the context of everything else that happens after that in Star Wars. And the reason why the song that's playing during that fight is called The Duel of the Fates. It's one of the best. I literally watched it and I got chills just thinking about it just now because he talks about how important it was, because basically what happens is it's called Duel of the Fates because if Darth Maul kills Obi-Wan instead of Qui-Gon, Anakin's growing up a completely different way. He's growing up with a completely different set of values. Maybe Qui-Gon, pushes him a little bit more, gives him a little bit more. And because it's Obi-Wan now, he's going down this completely different path. But like his explanation is 1,000 times better than mine. But just the way that he understood it and explained it, I was like, I don't care anything that man does Star Wars related. I'm 100% behind. Just for
I know the clip
interview
you're
alone.
talking about. I think you've shown it to me. Yeah,
I might have. Yeah,
that's what I mean. I don't know better than Dave Filoni, so
I don't think anybody does.
Right. So
besides Lucas,
I can't go off of his record because I haven't seen it all. So I just have to go off of trust that he knows Star Wars better than I do. So despite my kind of gripes about him saying like, oh, here's Scrummicious B. Crumb. You remember him, right? In every movie he does like a little bit of that. If it's a little fan service, I don't mind it as long as the plotting is good and it's worth it. So yeah, give me Filoni. Let's go. I'll take it.
Love it. Sign us up.
Yeah.
Filoni for life.
For life.
All right. Let's dive into the production now. So Jon Favreau pitched the idea of Star Wars, of a Star Wars streaming service centered around a Mandalorian bounty hunter very shortly after Disney began developing its streaming platform, Disney Plus. He wrote most of season 1 himself, and he pushed for the show to feel intimate, cinematic, and mythic rather than overloaded with lore, but it still had to be faithful to the lore, obviously. So Favreau consulted Filoni, and who obviously brought his deep knowledge of Mandalorian culture, the mythology, and Lucas's storytelling philosophy. And he shaped a lot of the emotional core of the show. So prior to the show coming out, and I'll mention the dates. So it was announced in November of 2017, which was 1 month before The Last Jedi came in. Mm-hmm. So if you think about like that time frame around Star Wars, did you have faith that they were going to do this show justice? Do you have any faith in Star Wars?
Yes. Yeah, I still had a lot of faith. Yeah, especially pre-Last Jedi, which, man, just some wild moves there. But it's not all the same mistakes. It's all new ones. So it's like a Jeff Goldblum line from Star Wars. So, or Jurassic Park. So Jeff Goldblum, Star Wars, that'd be nice. So I had faith at the time. Yeah. Yeah,
Same.
I thought that the ship would be fine. I had a
I-
lot of faith in Rian Johnson.
Oh yeah,
And
going
then
into the Last Jedi.
yeah, like just in general, like that at the time, I had faith in Rian Johnson. They announced the Mandalorian. Yeah, I was still hopeful for Star Wars, even though I didn't love Force Awakens.
And I think that Favreau was tagged to it pretty early on. Like people knew that he was involved in the production.
Yeah, that was
of the movie.
exciting.
So that was good too, because Iron Man 2017 would have been.
That's right around Homecoming came out in 2017. So
Yeah,
that's like Civil War time.
yeah,
He's like prime Happy Hogan days, but still forming the cinematic universe and all that. Yeah.
absolutely. All right, so now let's talk about probably the most important part of the filming process for The Mandalorian, the volume.
Mm.
So when I was doing the research for this, interesting enough, I went onto ILM, which for those who don't know, it's Industrial Light and Magic. They're the ones that do
All of it.
Cinematography for like every major motion picture ever. It's funny because their website doesn't look like anything. Like it looks just like a random company that's just trying to get work. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, does anybody go to their website? Like, let's see what this ILM company is all about. Like maybe they can help me with my little project that I'm working on. They're involved in like every Star Wars,
Everything.
Jurassic Park, Terminator, India, just any movie you can think of. And something else that was interesting on the website, they don't call it the volume, they call it Stagecraft, the volume.
Mm.
And Stagecraft, the actual definition is stagecraft is distinct from the wider umbrella term of scenography. It's considered a technical rather than an artistic field. It is the primary and practical implementation of a scenic designer's artistic vision.
Wow.
I was like, that sums up the volume pretty well. But so the process basically involves shooting live action actors and sets surrounded by these gigantic high definition LED video walls. And the walls display the computer generated imagery backdrops behind them. So when they're shooting, the production team is basically able to realign the background instantly based off of the actors and the moving camera positions, and the entire CGI background can be manipulated in real time while they're shooting. That is a very, very simple oversimplification of what the volume does and how it does it. I highly recommend you watch any of the behind the scenes. There's a bunch of them on Disney Plus on how they do it. They
essentially just stand in a room with giant TVs.
It's basically a giant room with these circular walls, and there's a camera. But when the camera moves, the background alters. So if you were just to set up walls and just have the scenes, like if it was just this background and then you moved or the camera moved, it would look like you're just moving behind a wall versus if you were moving in real life. So the cameras, the LED screens and the backgrounds are able to adjust the, I guess, perspective based off of where the actors are to look as real as possible.
It's very cool.
With all that being said, Gabe, I feel like, and I know that there's definitely some people on the internet who feel that it's being overused, or it kind of maybe breaks the fourth, would you call it the fourth wall, breaking the fourth wall? Like knowing that you're in a volume scene in a movie. Does that, do you kind of see through the smoke and mirrors of the volume sometimes in the show? And does it take it out for you?
As it goes on, I think so. I don't know if it takes me out, but I think it's more noticeable as the series went on. And maybe that's natural, of just things become less inventive once you get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying anymore. They're just doing what's working. Not trying, but not inventing anymore. So, yeah, a little bit.
I think at first for me, it wasn't so much taking me out, but because I didn't really, at least after season 1, I didn't know that's how they filmed it.
Same.
And it was definitely used a lot more, in a COVID era times, just because it was easier to keep less people. You're not outside.
Mm-hmm.
You can create digital characters in the volume in the wall, so you have less people around. But I found myself in this rewatch being like, oh, that's a volume shot. That's a real shot. Like
you could just tell.
There's definitely some I could pick out. Doesn't really take me out of it that much, but I get why some people will be like, I've seen so many tweets where they'll show like somebody will like post a clip and they'll be like, stop using the volume. Like we can tell that this is just one person and a camera in a giant room with LED screens.
I think it works best in like a desert scene, something like that. But I'm thinking of, there's one scene where they're talking to Grief Karka. Maybe it's season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the city behind him, and it just looks awful. And you could tell, you just know
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah. I agree. But I think it was probably the only way that they were able to do this show in the constraints that they probably had as far as like budget and, you know, set design. Like some of the set designs they would have had to actually make would have been insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I see it more now than I did before, but I don't really have a problem with it.
But that's kind of what I'm saying, right? The drop in quality. There is a noticeable drop somewhere.
Yeah. Really quickly, I want to talk about the music. Ludwig Göransson. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Probably only heard it 100 times, but he wrote the soundtrack for the show, and I think he absolutely kills it.
Nailed it.
He is from Sweden, and his breakout composing role was actually for the show Community, where he met Childish Gambino, who became a frequent collaborator. They actually, I don't know if you've ever seen this. He did a cover. There's a YouTube, I think it's an Australian show, but they have a YouTube series where they do, they bring in artists and they do interesting covers. It's called something fun. Who covered this? Something to that effect. It's like a pun on the word cover. Name that cover. I whatever it is. But he did a cover of I'm So Into You, Ashanti, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I'd watched it a bunch of times and I didn't realize Ludwig was the guitarist, like in the background. I watched it right after I saw that they were collaborators and I was like, I cannot believe I never saw him there.
It's amazing.
But so Ludwig Göransson's won 3 Academy Awards for Best Original Score, Black Panther, Oppenheimer, and Sinners. And he's a 6-time Grammy winner for multiple different projects. And I like it doesn't sound like a typical Star Wars soundtrack in some parts, but it doesn't take you out of the action. Like he puts his own unique take on each song.
Very Western.
Very Western. And I think the theme, the Mandalorian theme, is absolutely perfect. Every time I hear it, it gets stuck in my head for days. Every time.
It's great.
Unbelievable. You're a big fan of the soundtrack, like the theme.
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. That's one of the best parts about it.
I agree. And the music always is an important part of Star Wars. So it's good that they got somebody who, I mean, obviously he's doing very well outside of Star Wars, but I think he absolutely kills this soundtrack too.
Yeah, totally agree.
So now let's get into the cast. We're going to do it by, I put it in order of most episodes appeared in by actor, and you'll see why I did this in a minute. The Mandalorian, whose name we'll find out at some point towards the end of season 1, is Din Djarin's, played by Pedro Pascal. If you've seen a movie or watched a TV show in the last 3 years, there's a 50% chance that you saw something with Pedro Pascal in it.
Yeah.
The Fantastic Four, Last of Us, Wonder Woman 84, which means he's technically in Marvel, DC, Star Wars.
Wow.
Like every major movie project. He was also in Narcos, and I think probably most famously before all of this stuff, Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Very quick side note and question for you, Gabe. There are 15 actors who have played roles in Game of Thrones and Star Wars, either through voice acting or in live action. Can you name just one other? There's I know you can name at least one person.
Let me think for a second. Just trying to like run through like.
You can do it. There's somebody in every era.
Okay. Interesting. Isn't Pycelle in Star Wars?
Julian Glover in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. I got that pretty fast, actually.
That was good. You could have said Gwendolyn Christie, who is
Phasma.
It was Phasma. Emily or Emilia Clarke in Solo.
Right.
Bunch of people. The one that I found out about that I didn't know that I thought was really cool. It's in the Mandalorian show, so it's relevant. In the episode where they're breaking into the Imperial base to find the location of Moff Gideon, and he's with Mayfeld, and there's an Imperial officer that like finds them and makes them have a drink with him at the table.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, that Imperial officer, his name is Richard Brack, I think his last name is. He played the Night King in Game of Thrones, and he was the Night King for the Hard Home episode.
That's amazing.
I found that out. I was like, that's so cool. He played the best Night King.
I'm raising my arms, but
absolutely amazing. I thought that was really cool. So that's your Star Wars Game of Thrones connection. So Pedro was recruited directly by Jon Favreau, who actually brought him onto the volume as they were constructing it and working on it, showed him the initial storyboard ideas, and they tried to get him on board. And then Oscar Isaac, who plays Poe Dameron in the sequel movies, called him and urged him to take the role, which he eventually did. He was going to take it no matter what. He's a huge Star Wars fan, but it was nice to have them kind of, give him the whole song and dance to get him to take the role. So the character of Mando wears a helmet for most of the show. How much do you think Pedro Pascal actually played the live action versus his stunt doubles?
I would say 0. I'd say he's never in the suit.
All right. So apparently,
unless he has to be.
Apparently, he was in the suit for a significant amount of the dialogue scenes for season 1 and 2, and then almost exclusively voiceover in season 3. So Brendan Wayne, who is the grandson of John Wayne, which I think is amazing, as it's basically a Western. So you have like John Wayne's DNA on set. He handled the rest of the movement and like the dialogue heavy acting in the suit. So he's the guy that's doing all like the little gestures if it's not Pedro in the suit. And then Lateef Crowder serves as the primary stuntman for all like the combat scenes. So
that's the John Wayne thing's cool. That's
really, really cool. Yeah.
The Star Wars John Wayne connection.
Love it. So technically the next actor in line by most episodes is Chris Bartlett. I wanted to see what your reaction was going to be. He basically plays every humanoid looking droid in every season.
Oh, okay.
So if there's a droid that sort of has like C-3PO like arms and legs, Chris Bartlett played that character. So he's in 13 episodes, and Pedro's in 24. So that's the disparity between him and the next person up. So after Chris, we have Katie Sackhoff, who plays Bo-Katan Kryze. So the character of Bo-Katan was introduced in the Clone Wars series. She's also in Rebels for a bit too, but she was voiced by Katie, and her likeness was what inspired the character's look overall. So when they decided they were going to bring her character into the show, it was basically just how do we convince her to do this if she doesn't want to do it, because she's the only person that could have played it. Next, we have Carl Weathers playing Grief Karga, who we've talked about. Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers.
Happy Gilmore episode. Yeah. He's phenomenal. He basically runs the guild where Mando gets all of his bounty work. And he also directs a few episodes. And when we're going through, I have the directors. So we'll talk about the ones that he directed too. Emily Swallow plays the armorer. We don't see her face. I think she does a pretty good job overall as the armorer. She's kind of, again, another plot driver character. She kind of puts Mando on
swim in the Mandalore.
She puts him on a lot of his journeys, and I think she does a great job in this role.
Yeah.
And then finally, our big bad, Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon. He's the Imperial warlord that kind of causes all of the issues for the Mandalorian.
Don't love him in this, but it's fine.
What do we think of the cast overall, though? I think it's pretty good.
It's good cast. Yeah, the cast is strong. They do a nice job. And, even some of the smaller characters that come in and out of the show, Amy Sedaris and some of the others, they're all good. It's a well-performed show, I would say. Even the puppetry for Grogu, all that's no complaints there, really. Everyone does a nice job. And even Giancarlo Esposito is a great actor. I just don't love what they did with Moff Gideon. But, yeah, cast is strong.
I would agree. There's a ton of cameos. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there's some that I'll bring up as we're going through the different episodes. But I think it's time that we finally dive into this plot, Gabe. Are you ready to get into our first show, The Mandalorian? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Okay, so Season 1, Episode 1. The Mandalorian, directed by Dave Filoni. First shot we see is Mando with a bounty hunter. He goes into this bar, and there's some people messing with this character. We'll come to find out his name, Mithril, who is played by Horatio Sands.
Random.
So random. And I was like, I didn't realize that until I was looking at the cast listing. But Mando enters the bar, and we get the first flute theme by Ludwig Göransson. Mando beats everybody up. takes the mithril. He has a bounty puck, and he has the iconic line that I just said: "Bring you in warm, bring you in cold." We get a needle drop, Mando card. Boom. First episode's off and running. We go back to his ship, and they're attacked by this monster, and he grabs a gun with 2 points at the end. So that gun was actually from Boba Fett's very first appearance ever in Star Wars in the animated segment of the Star Wars Christmas movie.
That's so funny.
Which is by far, hands down, the worst Star Wars thing that has ever come out.
I've seen it. Is it on Disney?
I don't know. I don't think
I've
so.
seen it before, though.
There is some like classic animated stuff that came out. Like, I don't know if it was after that or before that, but there's that. So I don't know if the Christmas thing is up there. I don't think it is. It was bad, but it did give us Boba Fett, which in turn gave us the show. So we do have to kind of owe it. You know, we owe what we have today to the Christmas special. And the character Mithril also later on, he mentions Life Day, which is what that Christmas movie is kind of based about. So another connection right there. But we land on Navarro, which is the planet where Grief Karga basically has the guild and runs like the whole bounty hunter operation there. Tells Mando about this bounty. It doesn't have a puck, doesn't have a chain code, meaning he has to go in blind to try and find it. Mando goes and meets with the client, who's an Imperial officer. We don't really know what his title is, but he meets Dr. Pershing. We'll find out more about him later. They offer him Beskar steel, which is what the Mandalorian armor is made from. He takes the down payment, brings the Beskar to the armorer. She makes a new piece for his suit, and we see flashbacks of him as a kid. Again, we'll get more into that later on. He then heads to the planet. They told him that the bounty was on. We meet Quill, who kind of teaches him how to ride this thing. I think it's called a grub. And he mentions the mythosaur. Again, all these things are going to come back later on in the show. But the mythosaur was the thing that Boba Fett in the Christmas special was riding on. We just keep coming back to this. But I like that they put a lot of these references in the very first episode. So Quill takes him to this encampment where the bounty is. We see this IG unit from, I believe the first time we see it is in Empire. And he's already attacking the hideout. They team up. They take out all these mercenaries that are guarding it. And inside the hideout, we find an egg-shaped basket. And inside of it is an alien, the same species as Yoda, who is one of the most powerful Jedi and Force users ever. And the character that we see is forever known as Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda. Were you surprised that the show was bringing in another of Yoda's species?
Oh, yeah. At the time, it was such a good twist. And I remember when Mando was coming out, they didn't really release what the show was about or any of the plot. You knew it was a Western and it would follow a Mandalorian, which I really didn't even know much about at the time either before the show. And I was a whole religion and all that. Yeah, I was psyched when you first saw it was Baby Yoda. And I remember in that moment, I think they dropped the first 2 episodes on Disney Plus at the time.
I think so.
Maybe? It felt like Disney had a genuine hit on their hands. And that Star Wars, like we were saying before, despite what we thought about Last Jedi, this show was like, oh, this was amazing. I remember looking forward to season 1 every day. And then, there was this slight drop off like we talked about, but season 1 was stellar. And the opening with Baby Yoda is because of that. Or it's because of that.
Yeah. And I did not, I thought the show was going to go completely different direction that it ended up going in. But after that scene, I agree with you. I was blown away. I had so many questions. Like, is that Yoda's child?
Yeah, right.
Where did it come from? Are we
going
to get an explanation around Yoda? Because that was something that I think Lucas always wanted to keep a secret. Like, I think he never intentionally said what species Yoda was, where he came from, anything like that. So to bring in this character, it was kind of like, are they going to go down that path? Are they really going to bring this thing up that Lucas specifically said he wanted to keep ambiguous? And I really, really hope they don't ever talk about it or we ever figure it out. I would like to know more about his origins and like how he got to that point, like how he ended up there. But yeah, I was excited for the show. I was so much more excited after this.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So then we get into episode 2, titled The Child and directed by Rick I mess up his last name every time I try it. Famuyiwa. Famuyiwa. Rick Famuyiwa.
Sounds good.
So Mando has to fight off more bounty hunters who were coming after Baby Yoda. There was a bunch of people that had pucks that were trying to get him. Mando gets hurt and Baby Yoda tries to heal him, and we get our first great Baby Yoda meme, which is his hand like outstretched, like trying to help him. When I first, especially in this beginning of the second episode, I had such a strong emotional response to Baby Yoda. Like I would have jumped in front of a train for him. Knowing it's a fake character, I would have literally done anything for him.
Everyone was in love with him. He was everywhere.
Everywhere. Oh my God. It was just right off the bat. I was like, yep, I'm in. I'll do anything for this kid. I get Mando and everything he does in the show. I totally understand it. So he goes back to his ship, which is called the Razor Crest, and we see there's a bunch of Jawas that are scavenging it. We get another great meme of him, like he's shooting the Jawas and Baby Yoda's just standing there like, yeah, kill them. That was great. But speaking of Baby Yoda memes, Gabe, what is your favorite of the Baby Yoda memes that came out of this?
I usually like ones where he's like dancing a little bit, or, you know, when he, there's one where he has like a drink in his hand or something like that. So those are like my favorites, I think.
That I think is my favorite. The one where he has I think it's a soup bowl, but it kind of looks like a cup.
Yeah.
And one of the memes is like moms on Christmas morning when you're opening your presents, and it's just him like, yeah, this is great.
There's so many.
So many good ones. Mando goes back to Queel to kind of help him bargain with the Jawas, and they tell Mando that they would trade all the parts for the egg of a mudhorn. So Mando goes to a cave and he fights the mudhorn, and the mudhorn's about to just kill him, and Baby Yoda stops it. We see him using the Force, so now we know he's Force sensitive, which is interesting. They get the parts, they repair the ship, and they're off. Then we go into episode 3, which is called The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow, who would go on to actually be the sole director for the Obi-Wan series that we were talking about before. So Mando ends up bringing Baby Yoda to the Imperial client. He gets paid with a bunch of Beskar steel in the ice cream bucket. And you know the reference to the ice cream bucket with the guy in Empire? Okay. We go back to the armor. We get a little bit of lore behind the helmet and how Mandalorians in that cult don't take off their helmets. It's never been taken off by somebody. That's a part of their particular, I want to say sect of Mandalorian. And we get why they're hidden. And we hear the first "This is the way" by the armorer. She makes basically a whole new suit for him. And while she's doing that, we see more flashbacks of him as a baby. He's hidden from, he's in there's a fight going on his home planet, and they're getting attacked by, we see Trade Federation droids. So we know that this is prequel era time frame. Mm-hmm. So Mando's obviously, like we all were very concerned about Baby Yoda. He goes back to the ship and he sees this little ball that was a thing that Baby Yoda was playing with at one point. And he's like, all right, I got to go save this kid. He goes back to save him, battle with stormtroopers. He uses one of his new weapons as the whistling arrows, which is really, really cool. What is your favorite Mandalorian weapon? And if you could pick only one to have, which one would you pick?
I'm going to cheat and say the Darksaber.
That's a good one. I'm going
to cheat and say that. It's pretty sick, which it
is a Mandalorian weapon too.
I don't really get it, but yeah, the Darksaber is what I want to say.
I mean, it's a lightsaber, but it's a Mandalorian lightsaber.
But we'll talk about that. Oh yeah.
We'll talk about it towards the end. Yeah, but I agree. I would say, even though it's not a weapon, it's a tool that they have. I would say jetpack. Oh, yeah, I would just love to just take off. Yeah, jetpack is sick. So once he gets Baby Yoda out of there, the other bounty hunters all have pucks and they light up, and they're basically out to go get Mando. They all meet with him. They catch up with him in the courtyard, and Grief Karga's there, and he's basically like, "Give us the kid. Everything's gonna be fine." And he has this great line. He just goes, "I'm your only hope," which is
that's good. I like that.
Classic take on a Star Wars line. He gets pinned down. They basically there's a shootout. He gets pinned down, and all the other Mandalorians come out of hiding to help save him. He leaves, and this was the Jon Favreau nod that I was talking about. He's on the ship flying, and we see this one character whose name is Paz Vizsla, who will come up. He'll be a reoccurring Mandalorian that we'll see a lot. He's flying right next to him, and it's funny because it looked like an Iron Man suit,
That's
the way
funny.
he was flying. And the character of Paz Vizsla is voiced by Jon Favreau. So I
like that
was
him and
kinda cool.
Filoni like have different roles in the show. Like I like that they
Yeah.
do that. That's cool.
Very, very cool. Then we get to episode 4, which is titled The Sanctuary. This was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Very big side quest episode. They're on this agricultural planet. There's villagers. They're being terrorized by these raiders. Mando lands there, and him and Baby Yoda go to explore the planet. They end up at this bar, and we meet Gina Carano's character, Cara Dune. Little Easter egg, there's a cat. It's called a loath cat that goes up to Baby Yoda and like kind of scares him. That's actually in the show Rebels. So another little Dave Filoni Easter egg there. The villagers of this town ask Mando to come and protect them. He does it because they're very isolated and he's looking for a place to kind of lay low with the bounty hunters after him. But they find out that they're being terrorized by this group, and they have an ATST, which is the two-legged walker that we see first in Return of the Jedi. So Mando and Cara Dune, they start training the villagers to kind of fight back. They end up going to like provoke the raiders to bring them to the village so they can take out the ATST. And it's cool, the scene where it like rises up and all you see are the red eyes from the interior.
Yeah.
A lot of like Jurassic Park imagery with like the thing walking. You just see the trees moving in the background. Like really, really cool scene. They battle and they win. The villagers win. They kick out the raiders. Mando's thinking about leaving Baby Yoda because he wants him to stay protected and the village is isolated. But before he can do that, there's another bounty hunter that finds them. So they decide to leave, and they basically want to protect everybody, including the villagers. And so they have to get out of there. Next, we have episode 5, which is called The Gunslinger. And this was also directed by Dave Filoni. This is one of those awesome opening dogfight scenes in space between Mando and one of the bounty hunters. I thought it was really cool. We end up at the Mos Eisley spaceport on Tatooine, which is obviously a staple planet. Tatooine, as you can see on my shirt, a planet in the suns. Staple planet in Star Wars. Amy Sedaris plays Pele, who we'll meet. She comes back in Mando. She's actually in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
too.
she's in a lot of it.
She's a recurring character that we'll meet a lot. I think she's great. I think she's hilarious. She's a good, what do you call it? Like back and forth between Mando, like his seriousness and her comedy of like play off of each other well. And it's funny because like, just like everybody else, she falls in love with Baby Yoda as soon as she meets him. Instantly. So Mando goes to the cantina from A New Hope. And this takes place after A New Hope. And we see a little blaster mark on the wall in the exact spot where Han and Greedo first met.
So good.
Who do you think shot first, Gabe? Han or Greedo?
We know who shot first. We know.
Oh, we know. We absolutely know. We'll leave it up to the listeners to decide for themselves, but we know. So we meet this kid Toro. He's trying to get into the guild. He has a puck for Fennec Shand, who's an assassin mercenary, and he asked Mando to help him find her. They basically go out to find him, and they run into some Tusken Raiders along the way, who we've seen in multiple other movies and projects. So I didn't know or realize that the Tuskens knew sign language. Is it weird? Does that make sense for them? Like, does that like take anything away from the characters of the Tusken Raiders?
I'm surprised. I couldn't see them like actually signing. It's interesting.
I think they just used it as like a way of getting Mando to have to go like art.
Yeah.
If you could learn a Star Wars language, what would you pick?
Jawa. So good.
I think the maybe not the obvious answer, but like the encompassing answer is Aurebesh. That's like the one. Huttese, I think, is like the next biggest one. Aurebesh is the one I think that's most used, and they put a lot of Easter eggs in this show and a lot of the Disney stuff in Aurebesh. So there's like a full codex of that language where they're able to use it. So it comes up a lot. So I would that's like knowing English in Star Wars, basically.
That's funny.
So they go out, they capture Fennec. Mando leaves to go get a transport, and the kid kills Fennec. At least we think he kills her, so that he can go and get Baby Yoda. Fennec basically tells him that Mando's on the run from the guild and he's got a target. So he basically is like, I'm gonna go get the target and bring it back to the guild. Doesn't work out. Mando ends up killing the kid, and they whoosh off into wherever they're going to go next. But there's a post-credit scene where we see Fennec Shan's body, and we hear the clink clank of spurs walking towards Fennec's body, and we're left wondering who that can be, and we'll pick up on that at a later time. Next episode, we have The Prisoner, episode 6, also directed by Rick Famuyiwa. Got it that time. This is the Cameo Fest episode, so we got a lot of people in this one. Mando is hired for a job by Ranzer, who's played by Mark Boone Jr., who I associate with Batman Begins, but I know he was in like Sons of Anarchy and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's brought on for this job with Mayfeld, who's played by Bill Burr, a Twi'lek who's called Zian, who's played by Natalia Tena, another Game of Thrones tie-in.
Harry Potter, yeah.
And Harry Potter, yep. Berg, who's played by Clancy Brown, who also plays a character. He voiced a character in the Rebels series, but more famously, he voices Patrick in SpongeBob.
It's funny. Clancy Brown does a lot of stuff. He's a big character actor.
Very big. A lot of voice acting. He does a bunch of stuff in Star Wars too. And then we have Zero, who's voiced by Richard Ayoade.
Oh yeah. He's a comedian.
Yes. So they're basically all brought together to just bring a prisoner from a New Republic mass security prison. They break in. There's all these droids, but there's one human, and the human in the control center is played by Matt Lanter, who actually voices Anakin in the animated Clone Wars series.
Oh, that's cool.
We do see him later. I think he plays an X-Wing pilot later on too. But yeah, he voices the Anakin character in the Clone Wars. So they break out Quinn, who is Zian's brother, and he's played by Ishmael Cruz Cordova. And he's in The Rings of Power, and he plays Arondir. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't, but a lot of connections here.
He's one of the elves. Elves. They break out Quinn. They break out Quinn, and they leave Mando in a prison because Mando left Quinn in some other job in the past. So there was basically like revenge for what happened to him. They lock him in the cell. Mando breaks out. There's some great shots in this scene. Like there's him basically killing or capturing everybody. We find out he ends up leaving all of them in a cell, but they go back to Ranzer's ship with Quinn, and Mando leaves, but he left a tracking beacon on this like base that they're on, and New Republic X-Wing show up thinking that they're the people that, broke into the prison. So there's these 3 ships, and 2 of the pilots are directors. So one of them is Deborah Chow. The other one is Rick Famuyiwa, who is the director of this episode. And the other pilot is Dave Filoni. So yeah,
cool.
Super Cameo Fest episode.
Yeah.
When are cameos too much? Does this episode overdo it, or is it this enough?
I would say it's too much when it's like so fan servicey. Like the guys, I think it's in Solo when they have like the patrons from the Mos Eisley bar that Luke and Obi-Wan get into the fight with, and he goes, "You'll be dead." I think they like appear in Solo or something like that. That's like
they're in Rogue One.
Or they're in Rogue One. That's like fan servicey. These guys, I think it's a little bit less, and it's more like directors and stuff like that. It's faces, but I think it's worse when they're like these. Look at these 2 random Star Wars characters, something like that.
And especially that one in Rogue One, it's like that planet blows up not long after that. So how the hell did they get out of there in enough time and then make it to A New Hope, which wouldn't have happened that long after that?
They're essentially just jumping from there to there.
And they just went right over to Tatooine. No, I agree. I think this is a big cameo fest, and I think as long as you're not making it too obvious, you can have a bunch of people in an episode. As long as you're not being like, hey, look at this guy. This person,
guy,
we put him in here because it's a thing.
Yeah.
As long as you're not doing that, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
So then we get to episode 7, titled The Reckoning, directed by Deborah Chow. So Grief Karga reaches out to Mando, and he basically offers him, come back to Navarro, bring Baby Yoda as bait for the Empire, because they've basically taken over the planet now, and will basically kill them and get the Empire out of here. So he convinces Cara Dune to come help and fight him with the Empire. She's actually an ex-shock trooper, so she hates the Empire. Then they go to Quill, and Quill reconstructed the IG-11 droid to work for them. So he's not trying to kill Baby Yoda. He's actually there to protect Baby Yoda at all costs. They go to meet with Greef Karga. They're camping. They're basically making their way to the town. And while they're camping, they're attacked by these flying creatures. Greef Karga is injured, and Baby Yoda comes over and heals him. And we see the healing abilities. I don't know if that's the first time we saw that in Star Wars.
I think it is. Because Rey does the healing in Rise of Skywalker. I just watched it, but that would have came out after this.
It's interesting. The show technically started, what was it, 2 months before?
Yeah.
So this episode might have aired right before Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly right. So they embedded all that at the same time.
And they timed it out where it makes sense.
But it felt random for me at the time. And then that Rey did it too in the movie. I was like, oh, so now everyone just could fucking heal them. But that came out of nowhere, I feel like. But unless Lucas had laid the seed somewhere, but
they also did it in a post. Technically, all of those healing events happen after the original movies. So you could say it like they figured it out after through whatever. Yeah. I agree. So the plan is to bring Mando as a prisoner to get close to the client and killed him. Obviously, that does not go to plan. Everything gets blown up. They go to the bar and everything gets destroyed. And we're finally introduced to Moff Gideon. So they get pinned down. Quill gets killed. Stormtroopers take Baby Yoda. Everything's a mess. End of the episode. We move on to the finale, episode 8, Redemption, directed by Taika Waititi.
Well, he's the voice. Yeah.
He's the voice of IG-11.
Yeah.
So there's an opening scene where these two stormtroopers that have Baby Yoda are waiting to go into the village. They're waiting for some kind of. They're played by Jason Sudeikis and Adam Pally. Is this scene like totally out of place? It is like so weird to me.
It feels like Robot Chicken.
Kind of like, it's so strange. It's just like, it's one of those things where they like, there's a rock and they're trying to shoot it and they're missing it because stormtroopers have bad aim. But the way that they did it was just so like nonchalant. And I'm like, what? I was waiting for like the opening of that episode should like start off with a bang, and it's just the two of them kind of sitting there like, all right.
I had a note about that, and it felt like it was something that they had wanted to do, and they wanted to get out of their system and just do it. Like they had a kernel of an idea. So it was the finale, and they just stuck it in there because they wanted to make sure that they were able to do it. And that's why it's there. And it's one of those things where, you know, when you edit and you create, sometimes stuff needs to go on the cutting room floor, and I feel like they just wanted to keep it. That's really what it is. But to me, it felt like it was like Robot Chicken, like, and sometimes Star Wars does that stuff where same way in Force Awakens, like there's always a way to blow it up. You know, that's Robot Chicken Star Wars stuff. But
yeah, totally agree. So IG-11 comes in, saves Baby Yoda. We go back and Moff Gideon's talking to the other characters that are at the bar. We learned a little bit about Cara Dune. She's originally from Alderaan, so there's obviously some, you know, pain points there. We find out Mando's full name is Din Djarin, and he knows it's Moff Gideon because he knew his name and he'd never hadn't spoken his name in a very long time. But then we see the full story of how he came to be with the Mandalorians. They saved him from the Trade Federation when he was being attacked on his home planet. So a little bit of an Easter egg. There's a scene, basically Moff Gideon is talking to them. He's with a whole platoon of stormtroopers and they have this weapon and a whole bunch of other stuff. A good chunk of those stormtroopers are actually part of a local chapter called the 501st Legion that make their own movie accurate suits. So the production actually ran out of stormtrooper suits, and Dave Filoni called the 501st Legion to come be in these shots.
That's cool.
And these guys do a ton of charity work. They'll like go to hospitals, dress up as stormtroopers. They're part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So anytime that they have somebody that has a wish of being involved in something Star Wars, they'll go and do it. So it was cool to like get these guys officially in Star Wars. So IG-11's like, I'm coming in hot, and he basically starts blasting everybody. There's a huge fight scene. They get pinned down again in the bar. There's a flamethrower stormtrooper that comes in with this like giant thing and tries to like basically melt them in the bar. And Baby Yoda stops it, gets knocked out because I guess for him using the Force is a big power drain, a big energy drain. They all escape out the back and everybody leaves except IG, who's trying to help save Mando. And he takes off his helmet and we see Pedro's face for the first and only time this season. They escape down this tunnel and they see that the other Mandalorians have maybe almost been wiped out by the Empire, except for the armorer who's still there. She explains that Baby Yoda is a Jedi and basically tells Mando she's got to go find other Jedi to bring him to.
Mm-hmm.
She also says he's a foundling and Mando's basically like his father until he completes the journey of getting him to Jedi. He also finally gets a jetpack, which he hasn't had this whole time. They go to escape down this lava path. They're trapped. IG basically has to go sacrifice himself and save everyone. When they get outside, Moff Gideon comes in with a TIE fighter, and Mando's like, all right, I got this jetpack. Let's go see what happens. They duke it out in the skies. Mando wins. He takes Baby Yoda to start their journey to find other Jedi. They leave, and as they're leaving, we see that Moff Gideon survived. He comes out of the destroyed TIE fighter with the Darksaber, like we mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
So, to break down very briefly the Darksaber.
Yeah.
The very first Mandalorian Jedi, who was Tar Vizsla, so he is the ancestor of Paz Vizsla, who's the character that Jon Favreau voices. He created the Darksaber because he was a combination of Mandalorian and Jedi. It passed down through his ancestors for thousands of years. And basically the owner of the Darksaber rules Mandalore. And it can only be won in combat. So in order to own the Darksaber, you have to have beaten the person who had it before. Very basic overview. But that is where we end season 1. So how did we feel after the first season of Mandalorian?
I liked it. I was satisfied with it. I thought that I wanted more lore and less self-contained bottle episodes, stuff like that. But I was happy more or less with the show at the time. I was satisfied.
I would agree. I was very intrigued by the Darksaber, having watched Rebels and Clone Wars animated series. So that intrigued me. And I realized kind of at that point the direction, or at least an idea of the direction that they were going in, knowing how much that was embedded in the Mandalorian lore and culture, that they were going to bring in significantly more of that going forward. So yeah, I was very intrigued and I liked the season. I was happy for it. I was very much looking forward to season 2. I want to say I rewatched the whole first season at some point without having it be like, oh, I want to rewatch this for season 2.
It's an easy watch, season 1.
Yes, definitely easy. I feel like it does a good job with bringing in enough for the non-Star Wars fan to enjoy, while also giving us the satisfaction of having those Easter eggs and little nods to the other movies and series and stuff. So then we get into season 2. Episode 1 of season 2 is titled The Marshal and is directed by Jon Favreau. So Mando's going to this fight. It's like the 2 pig people. I forget what they're called, but it's the guards from Jabba the Hutt's palace.
Yeah.
They're basically in like a UFC boxing kind of match. He's going to meet this character called Gor Koresh, who's voiced by John Leguizamo. He's asking me about the location of more Mandalorians. So when he's walking through the town initially, there's a bunch of graffiti on the walls. And the graffiti was done by artist David Cho, who was in season 1 of The Beef. He was the main character's like best friend in The Beef. He cameos. He's actually like in the audience during that fight too. But so Mando learns of a Mandalorian on Tatooine at Los Pelgo, which is a small mining town. So he goes to this town. Everything about it is like full Western. You know, it's like houses and shops and stuff. And there's like a town square right in the middle. It's all in the desert. So it's very full Western. We meet the sheriff, who's played by Timothy Oliphant. He has Mandalorian armor that we find out was bought he basically got it through Jawas, and he needs it to protect the town. They have raiders. There was basically like a power vacuum after the Empire fell, and these raiders were trying to take over. So he got the armor, and now he's using it to keep the town safe. Mando's basically like, this is Mandalorian. Like, I will kill you and take it off of you because it's my right to do so.
Yeah.
But Timothy's like, all right, help me out. There's a crate dragon that's basically terrorizing us. It's eating our livestock, and we just got to get rid of it. Help me out. I'll give you the armor. They end up teaming up with Tusken Raiders, who are also having an issue with this crate dragon, and they team up and they basically go to like try and stop it. When the crate dragon, it's in the cave, when it first comes out, there's an aspect ratio change, which I remember watching it the first time being like, oh, this is so cool. Because we've talked about this a few times in the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, love a good aspect ratio change.
It's so good. It just really emphasizes like, oh, you're about to see something really, really cool.
Right.
So during that aspect ratio change, there's this big battle. It stays wide like that basically till the end of the episode. And they kill it. Mando rides off into the sunset. As he's riding off into the sunset, the aspect ratio narrows again. And we see this character standing there. And he turns around and we see the face of Tamura Morrison, who in this show is playing the one and only Boba Fett.
Yes.
Which is a big deal because in Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett fell into the Sarlacc pit. And so it was a rumor for a while, or a theory that fans had, that Boba Fett could have survived. I guess I'll mention it here. The opening scene, eventually we'll get to.
Yeah, I know where you're going to go.
Boba Fett. But there's an opening scene in that show that shows how Boba got out of the Sarlacc pit. There's an episode of Parks and Recreation where Patton Oswalt, is that who it is?
Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt, thank you. Patton Oswalt goes to a town hall meeting and he's basically has to filibuster. And so he's talking about what he thinks. I think this was before The Force Awakens came out. He's talking about how he thinks they should introduce Star Wars and what the opening scene should be. The opening scene of Boba Fett is basically a shot-for-shot remake of everything he says in that episode of Parks and Rec. Like the hand coming up, the shot coming down of like the dual suns. Everything he says almost happens exactly how it is in the opening shot of Book of Boba Fett.
That's so funny. I mean, I like what they do. That's one of the best parts of it. So
it's awesome. It's so cool, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it works.
Does
this first?
I was going to say before we were talking about the Jason Sudeikis Stormtrooper thing. I think Boba Fett. Same thing. They like had that scene in mind and they wanted to do that. And then everything after that is kind of like, oh, what else could we do? But that's why I think it's the strongest part, is because that's really the only part they really wanted to do. But
makes sense.
Yeah.
Does this first episode feel like a significant step up in the production value from season 1?
I would say it's consistent at this point still. And I remember liking this first episode. I like Timothy Olyphant. So I would say it's still consistent for me. I would say the drop off or the change happens later for me.
Okay. Yeah. It felt to me like they were putting a little bit more emphasis on the action, at least in this episode. And I was hoping that they were going to kind of continue with that, which they did in some episodes and some scenes for sure. But this definitely was like, okay, we're getting into some heavy action-based stuff, at least initially. So I thought it was going to be a fun ride from there. Mm-hmm. So then we get to episode 2 called The Passenger, directed by Peyton Reed. So Mando goes back to Pele on Tatooine, because we've been on Tatooine this whole time. And he asks her to try and get some more details on Mandalorians, because we're still looking for them. So she basically is like, you need to take this frog lady, which is her official title, is frog lady, with him to a planet. On this planet, there's some contacts. They have information about Mandos.
So stupid.
Side quest. She needs to get to this planet. The frog lady needs to get to this planet because she has basically babies that are eggs and they need to hatch, but they need to do it on this planet. It's funny that like there's a whole stack of them in this like incubator that she has, and Baby Yoda's just eating them throughout the episode.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Just slowly minimizing.
I remember
like,
people online were getting annoyed about that. Like
it happened like maybe one too many times.
Yeah. People were flipping out. I remember that.
Yeah. But so they take off. they get caught up by, there's X-Wings, which it's interesting. The X-Wings now, they used to be just rebel pilots, so they were pretty much in the army at that point, but now they're cops to an extent. Like people call them blue, which, you know, makes them sound like police officers, or somebody calls them officer at one point. So they're basically cops. Mando's on the run from them because he has the Razor Crest is like an old Imperial, or it's pre-Imperial, so it doesn't have the right license or registration or whatever. So he runs away from them. They crash land on this snow planet, which is not Hoth from Empire. And they get attacked by these creatures while they're on the planet. And those creatures were they were the original concept designed by Ralph McQuarrie, who did the designs for Empire. They were the original creature designs for creatures that were going to be on Dagobah in The Empire Strikes Back. So that was a cool little, they brought that actually officially into Star Wars. So they're getting attacked by them. The X-Wings come back. They find them eventually and save them. We meet Captain Carson Teva, who's played by Paul's son, Hing Lee. And he comes up, he appears a bunch of times in the show. He's in Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka also. And they basically leave, but they're like limping off of the planet, like barely got into space. And we get into episode 3, and they're still floating in space. Episode 3 is called The Heiress and directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. They make basically a crash landing on this planet called Trask. It's a water-style planet. There's a bunch of water-style aliens, I guess you would call them. Mon Calamari, Quarren. Very interesting. Mon Calamari, Admiral Akbar.
So dumb.
We meet up with the Frog Lady's husband. She tells Mando, go to that inn. There's people there. He starts talking to these Quarren sailors, and they say, we can take you to some Mandalorians on our ship. They double-cross him. They trap him in part of their ship in the water. They're trying to steal his Beskar steel. He's saved by these Mandos that come in. There's 3 of them in blue armor. And we meet Bo-Katan for the first time. She takes off her helmet, and Mando's basically like, you're not Mandalorian. This is not okay. Then she explains that his group of Mandalorians were the group that broke away from the society, and they were trying to establish the old ways, which is called the Way of Mandalore. She says you're basically a child of the Watch, which is like you're a weird, different sect, not what most Mandalorians are. She tells him that they're trying to steal weapons from the Empire to take back Mandalore. And if Mando helps them, she'll tell them where there's a Jedi that they can take Baby Yoda to. So they're on this ship. They're trying to steal the weapons. There's 2 cameos on here. One of the Imperial officers, the one that's in the cockpit, his name is Titus Welliver. He was in the town. He was like the second in command of John Hamm in the town.
I don't remember.
Oh, I love the town. It's a great movie.
Town's okay.
He's also in
once or
Argo.
twice.
The other officer is Kevin Dorff, who's the guy he's the officer that gets sucked out of the bay at the end. He's like, close the doors, close the blast doors. That guy. He's a big Craig Daniels guy. He was in The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's in a bunch of those shows. They take back, the Mandalorians all take the ship back, and Bo-Katan tells Mando to go to the planet Corvus, and he'll meet Ahsoka Tano, who's a Jedi. I obviously spoken that I've seen the animated show, so I knew the significance of them mentioning Ahsoka. Did you have any like impact? Did you know who the character was?
I knew who Ahsoka was. She's probably the most well-known character outside of mainline Star Wars and the cartoons. Animated stuff is Ahsoka. So I knew who she was when they mentioned her, and I was excited to get to know her. I guess this preceded me. I don't know if this preceded me knowing if Rosario Dawson was cast as her, but I was excited about that. Yeah.
I don't know if she was officially cast. I feel like I remember
when they had mentioned her by then. I'm not sure, but I remember being excited about Ahsoka. I was like, oh, great, we're getting Ahsoka. Like, yeah.
I feel like she wasn't officially cast. Like there were rumors she was going to play it, but it wasn't anything.
Well, she
official.
was like a fan cast. It
Yes.
was like a John Krasinski's Mr. Fantastic situation.
I think that's what it was. And then when we'll get to her episode, but when she first shows up, I was like, perfect casting, perfect job. I think she kills it. But I was very excited when they first mentioned her name at the end of this episode. I was like, okay, we're now, once again, we're moving.
Yeah.
We're moving and grooving. Yeah. So before that, we get to episode 4, titled The Siege, which is directed by Carl Weathers. It's his directorial debut in The Mandalorian. I don't know if this was his first directorial movie or show.
Mhm.
So the Razor Crest still beat up. Mon Calamari didn't do a good job fixing it, so they have to go back to Navarro for repairs. We're reunited with Greef Karga and Cara Dune. They've cleaned up Navarro. They turned the bar into a school where they leave Baby Yoda and he eats some what looks like macarons,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them.
Macaroons.
Which is another good meme. But basically, they ask him. They found an Imperial base. It's like the last one on the planet, and there's a bunch of weapons on them. So they want to destroy it before these raiders get in and get to the weapons. They go to the base. They bring Mithril. They're trying to shut down. There's like a lava pit underneath, so they're trying to basically explode the planet using the lava underneath. And there's a scene where he goes out. There's like a box where he can like control or like shut it down, and it's hanging over the lava pit. And he makes a comment. There's like, there's no guardrails over here. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I immediately thought of the Family Guy skit from, I think it was the first episode, Blue Harvest.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I asked him, I'm like, why can't they just put a guardrail right here?
It is so funny. What the fuck?
Like those guys are just standing there. There's a giant planet-killing laser shooting past them. No protection, no OSHA at all.
No, definitely not. It was actually there was something I saw on Twitter that was like, oh well, they're not guarded because the Geonosians can fly out of here if there's an emergency, and that's why it's fine. I was like, Lucas did not.
No,
the people do more retconning for Lucas than Lucas retconned.
That was absolutely
like, come on. The Geonosians can fly through. Okay, please. But anyway,
I'm fine with that. I've never heard that before, so I'm totally fine with that.
That's what they say.
Also,
ridiculous because they're the designers. Man, I love Blue Harvest though. That's great.
So good, unbelievable. So before the base blows up, as they're leaving, they find this lab where they're doing experiments, and they find a recording, and they find out that Moff Gideon's still alive. So they realize that he's still trying to get to Baby Yoda. They're like, we have to get back to him. So they all leave. They're getting chased by speeders, which are the speeders that we saw in Return of the Jedi. There's TIE fighters, and Mando comes in with the Razor Crest and saves everybody. He leaves, and then we go to an Imperial ship. We find out that somebody placed a tracker on the Razor Crest and that they're going to eventually catch up to him. And we see Moff Gideon with a slew of these would look like droids. So that's kind of the cliffhanger that we leave on at the end of episode 4. Then we get to episode 5, which is titled The Jedi, and directed by Dave Filoni, which I think he probably was like, nobody else is directing this episode except for me. I have to do this episode justice. And this is basically a pilot for the Ahsoka show that would eventually come out in August of 2023. So like we said, Ahsoka is played by Rosario Dawson, which is funny. So she's also in MCU technically in like the Defenders verse. So that's probably another way that they were able to get her signed on for this.
Yeah.
We also meet Morgan Elsbeth, who's played by Diana Lee Intosanto, and Lang, who's played by Michael Biehn, who's John Connor. No, not John Connor. I always do this. I always mess this up with him. He doesn't play John Connor in the first Terminator. He plays Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese. I was going to say,
that's
it's
who
not
it is.
John Connor, it's Kyle Reese.
Yeah,
it's
Kyle
so
Reese.
funny.
So Mando goes into the town. He meets with Morgan, and she basically she has a Beskar blade, and she's like, "I'll give you this blade if you kill the Jedi," because she's basically been a pain in our butts. So Mando finds Ahsoka, and she sees Baby Yoda, and she's like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on with this guy. Yeah. So she uses the Force to communicate with him. We find out that his name is actually Grogu. What do you think of that name, Grogu?
It's fine. And when I first heard it, I wasn't totally into it. And I still call him Baby Yoda, even in general. Everyone just calls him Baby Yoda. But I guess he did have to get a name eventually. Grogu fits with like the Yoda kind of vibe. But yeah, I doubt that they thought that Baby Yoda would stick, or if they called it internally before the Grogu stuff came out in season 2, or if they even had a name for him. But Baby Yoda, I think, preceded Grogu, and then they intentionally gave him a name, maybe for branding or just for story. But I don't expect anything other than Grogu. It fits. He's just Baby Yoda, though. I'm never going to be like with my son. I'm never like, that's Grogu. I call him Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
that's it.
Everybody does.
That's it.
Everybody does. I was trying to be strategic about calling him Baby Yoda until this
I
point.
like that.
and
Yeah, I
might,
appreciate
I
that.
might go back and forth between Grogu and Baby Yoda, but I agree. I like the name. I think it fits with whatever the species is. Like it sounds like a Yoda type name. So totally
And
okay with
you
it.
talk zeitgeist. People know Baby Yoda. People don't know Grogu.
Yes, absolutely. So we find out that he was trained at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and he was hidden away
Love all this.
after the Empire took over, which we'll dive in a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
more into that story. Not too much, but we will. She says she won't train him because he has too strong of a connection with Mando, and it could lead him down the dark side. And she's seen that firsthand of what could happen with Anakin. But Mando says he'll help her save the village if she helps him and Grogu find another Jedi to help train him. So Ahsoka goes to the town. She pretends that she's killed Mando. She attacks the guards. This whole scene is exactly what I expect a Jedi post original movies to behave, how she moves, like just an unbelievable job overall of like portraying a Jedi in fight action scenes in this movie. Also really big, like Seven Samurai vibes.
Yeah,
like
love
between
that.
the two fights between them. Like it's just very much like Kill Bill, like just all in that same kind of vein, and very much based off of like the original inspiration for Star Wars too.
Yeah.
Like what Lucas was going off of when he originally created it. So they both win. Ahsoka has Morgan and she asks him where Grand Admiral Thrawn is, which again is a cliffhanger for the Ahsoka show. Another name drop that if you've watched Rebels.
I know about Thrawn. I knew about him. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I was like, oh my God, they're going to go. Now it's like, now they're going to go in that direction. Like it was just another thing that I was very, very excited about. So like we said, she won't train him, but she says, go to this planet Typhoon, and there's a temple where he can try and find another Jedi. Did this episode feel like it was leaning too much into the original concept? Like we said, the Seven Samurais sort of vibe that Lucas was going for? Like, does it try too much to be that type of movie or that type of episode?
No, this was where, I was always hoping things would eventually go lightsabers and the Force and stuff like that. That's when I think Star Wars is at its best. So at this point, even though there were some inconsistencies with the show for me, like the frog lady and all that, this is episode 5, right? So I was still here for the ride. And once we were getting like these, I'm fine with getting a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of lore, a little bit of standalone, a little bit of Western, some Yoda antics, Yoda and Grogu mixed together. So I still on board at this point, and you kind of saw that things were possibly leading toward Luke. We don't think we knew that it would be in the level that we got it on, but yeah, this was great.
Yeah, I agree. Let me get into episode 6, titled The Tragedy, directed by Robert Rodriguez. So they find the temple on Typhoon. Mando puts Grogu on the stone in the middle of the temple. And before anything happens, we see a ship come by, a ship formerly known as Slave One. We come to find out that on that ship is Boba Fett, and he saved Fennec Shand. So that was the guy in the spur, like we heard the spurs walking up to her body. So he ends up saving her. We find out more about how that happened in Book of Boba Fett. Doesn't impact the story at all, but just a little note. Then the Empire shows up to try and get Grogu because they had the tracker on the Razor Crest. Mando and Boba Fett fight the stormtroopers. What did we think of Tamora Morrison's portrayal of Boba Fett, more specifically once he puts the armor on and they're in this fight scene? Do you think he does Boba Fett justice in this scene?
I'm not an insane Boba Fett fan where a lot of people are, but yes, I would say so. I think more just seeing Tamora Robinson come back as a prequels kid. I was so hyped that they brought him back, and even though his performance maybe is sometimes inconsistent a little bit, not that not to shit on him as an actor, but I think that there are times when he's stronger than others in the show or shows. But yeah, I was totally down with all of this and the bringing back of Boba Fett and everything, and just a man making his way through the galaxy.
Just a simple man.
Yeah, just a simple man making my way through the galaxy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like they said he incorporated a lot of his. I'm going to mispronounce this Morai heritage, which helped with the fighting style. It's like this raw, like
I like all that.
brutal bashing. Like he was using the stick before he had the armor on, but then even with Mando, like he was using the punching style was just very unique and very his own. And I think it absolutely brought Boba Fett more to life because he doesn't really do too much in the original movies.
Yeah.
Which I think is what gave his character a little bit of like mystery, and people were like, what does he do? What's his whole story? And kind of what maybe brought about this whole show. So I think he does a really good job and kills it as Boba Fett for sure. So after they beat up the stormtroopers, there's this giant blast that comes down from the Imperial cruiser, destroys the Razor Crest completely. And these droids that we saw before come down, they take Grogu and they go up to the ship. And that's how we end that episode. Next, we move on to episode 7 called The Believer, directed by Rick Fumiyama. I think I got that right that time. Mando and Cara Dune, they spring Mayfield he's in a detention center. So after the whole prison break thing, he's been on a detention center. They're basically using him to go find Gideon, but they need to get to an Imperial terminal. And so they find one on this planet, and him and Mando go to sneak in to the base to get to this terminal. In order to do that, they go to this, there's like a port, and they need a facial recognition. So Mando's there, and he has to take his mask off, which at this point, it's like, okay, he's doing anything he needs to help save Baby Yoda. They meet up with this officer, tries to talk to them. We talked about him before, pisses off Mayfield, who kills the officer. They escape. Boba Fett picks them up in the ship, and best part of this entire episode, I think, is when they're escaping. There's the TIE fighters, and he releases the seismic charge, which is the same sound from Attack of the Clones.
So good. I wanted it. As soon as I saw the ship, I wanted it.
It was perfect. Yeah. And that's something too. We talked about like stuff that makes Star Wars. I think the sound design is so important in any Star Wars product. It's that a TIE fighter, just the sound of a TIE fighter flying, a lightsaber, even the siren, the Imperial siren. I had that as my dude. I had that as my alarm for the longest time, and that would get me up instantly. Every single time it would go off. So we go back.
By the way, I knew every sound you were talking about without even doing them. And you're the guy who can make the sounds better, but I knew every sound you were talking about.
Because they are iconic, because they are so well done.
Yeah.
And
it's really good.
To incorporate them. Like I remember in seeing the prequel movies for the first time, there were some of those sounds that came up that made the scenes so much better for me. Like the Imperial siren is in a scene on Attack of the Clones when Dooku's trying to leave. They're on a base in Geonosis. Not even,
I know you're talking
the Empire doesn't exist at that point. But I heard it in the movie theater, and I'm like, oh, that's from the Empire. Like they had these little, I don't even know if I want to call them Easter eggs. It's like these things
that's just storytelling at that point. It's really well done
back
storytelling.
Into it. Yeah, because that like
that's the Lucas aspect of it. That's what he was so good at as a storyteller. Like you could shit on his dialogue all you want, and the CGI shit he did in the retcons, but he is a master storyteller, and he is a perfectionist for continuity and stuff like that as best as he possibly can. I was even seeing something, how people were talking shit about how Leia, says she could remember her mother and stuff like that. When you first see Leia and Luke as babies in Revenge, Leia's awake and Luke is asleep, to infer that Leia was sensitive and attuned to the Force since she was an infant, and Luke was always asleep and not attuned to his senses, which plays into their characters later. It's so good.
I never noticed that.
So I saw that. I saw that today, just scrolling. Someone was rewatching some movies or something like that, and they were tweeting about it. And I was like, that's so good, because I had seen that Luke, or that that Lucas had said more or less, the Force kind of did the heavy lifting with that, but I had never seen that. That's one way that he kind of fixed it, stitched it. So good. So good.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Amazing. Well, all right. Then we get to episode 8, season 2 finale, titled The Rescue and directed by Peyton Reed. This is the highest rated episode of the show.
As it should be.
As it should be. So Mando and Cara, they kidnap Dr. Pershing, and they go to Bo-Katan for help. She basically is like, okay, you want to go after Gideon? Fine. I want the light cruiser and I want the dark saber. And that's what I need to take back Mandalore. So I'll help you get your kid if you help me get that stuff. So they sneak onto the ship, basically. All the girls go out together and they're creating a distraction. They're basically fighting all the stormtroopers to allow Mando to go and find Baby Yoda. Moff Gideon activates the dark troopers, takes some time for them to get wrapped up, but Mando's able to close the door before they can get out, except for one. And this dark trooper, it's basically a droid in super strong. We don't really know what the armor is at this point.
Mhm.
I don't think we can assume it's
Beskar,
Beskar,
yeah.
but it's something very, very strong, almost to that level. But this droid is almost impossible to defeat. He almost kills Mando. But eventually he gets to Grogu. Gideon is with him. He explains a little bit about the sword again that has, the owner has the right to Mandalore. They eventually, they duke it out a little bit. Mando beats Moff Gideon, which makes him the rightful owner of the Darksaber.
Very Elder Wand.
Very Elder Wand. The Dark Troopers then regroup. Everybody's at the bridge, and all the Dark Troopers, they get sucked out into space, but then they come back into the ship. They start knocking down the door. They kind of, it looked like those wrestling toys. Remember the toys that just kind of like punch each other?
Yeah, like Rock'em Sock'em Boppers and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. They just look like that, where they're like punching at the door very robotically.
It reminded me of two of Phantom, where they're trying to get in the Federation ship in the opening. I feel like it had echoes of that.
Very cool. I didn't even think about that. That's good. So before they get through the door, we hear an alarm go off in the bridge, and there's an X-Wing that pulls in, and Grogu's ears kind of perk up, and all the dark troopers stop. They focus their attention on this hooded figure that comes in. Comes out with a green lightsaber, cuts through all of the dark troopers, and has one of the best hallway scenes in Star Wars. Do you think this is the best one, or do you have a better one?
This and the Vader one are they're meant to be like mirror images of each other, even the way Luke attacks it. So the Vader one is more epic, obviously, but yeah, this was damn good. Really like this. And I think, I can't remember now, but I think it was spoiled for me that Luke was going to be in it. I think I hadn't watched Mando that night, and I had seen maybe it was trending. So I didn't maybe see a picture of it in my memory, but I knew that Luke was in it in some way. But I remember seeing the X-Wing, I was like, holy fucking shit, here we go.
I watched this scene with Eric, and we were screaming.
So good. So good.
Screaming. So to let everybody know who the hooded character is, the doors open up, and we are revealed, or it is revealed to be the Jedi Luke Skywalker has shown up to save the day. I think at the time, this was probably the most amazing thing that Disney Star Wars had done. In retrospect, the Luke de-aging wasn't perfect.
It's good enough.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. And then again, first time watching it, it was like, oh my God, they did it. Like they brought him back. It was a de-aged version of him from Return of the Jedi. So it looked as close as it would be to that time period. But I think they did a good enough job for the fans and like the hype around it being Luke. So Mando tells Grogu that he has to go with him. He takes off his masks, tells him not to be afraid. And then we get yet another cameo by I probably my favorite Star Wars character, R2-D2. And the last line of this episode is, "May the Force be with you."
So good.
So how did we feel about the show after the end of this season, Gabriel?
The show could have ended here.
I totally agree.
And it would have been, and then they could have made a movie or done anything they wanted, but these characters brought them back in other series in Ahsoka, anything. But the show, it didn't have to end here, but it could have ended here.
Totally agree. They had the storylines where if they wanted to do other projects, didn't have to be the Mandalorian. They could have done a Bo-Katan.
Bring anyone back however you want, in Ahsoka, continue. And they clearly did that because we get 2.5 Mando and Boba Fett. But I'm fine with doing inventive stuff like that and changing up the formula of TV shows. If you're going to watch them, you're going to watch them all, the Marvel effects. So yeah, they could have wrapped it and then made Mando a supporting character in Ahsoka or in a Bo-Katan one-off, whatever you had, looking back now as we're talking about it, season 1 I felt was strong. Season 2 pretty much just as strong, just a little different, a little bit deeper in the lore and a little bit less westernized, maybe a little bit less serious season 2, a little bit lighter maybe, but yeah, the show I feel like was still very strong at this point. I think the attachment to Boba Fett hurts it a little bit because that was a lesser quality show, even though the best episodes are the Mando episodes and whatever happened in 3.
Agreed. No, I think that the entirety up until the finale of season 1 and season 2 were equal in quality. I think this finale absolutely killed the season 1, everything else. It's the highest rated show. I think it's the best episode of the show.
Yeah.
By far and away. The Luke thing was really, like I said, me and Eric watched this together and we were both like losing our shit. We went back and watched that scene over and over, like at least like 5 times right after it aired. But then things get a little wonky, like we kind of mentioned. There's this mid-credit scene after the end of the episode that shows Boba Fett killing everybody in Jabba Hutt's lair on Tatooine. We get the title card for the Book of Boba Fett, which is the first time that was announced. So we didn't really know about that. But Book of Boba Fett comes out. It's a 7-episode show. I'm not going to talk about the whole thing, but the 5th and 6th episodes are, like we said, basically Mandalorian episodes. So we're just really quickly go through those because it directly impacts season 3. So episode 5 is titled Return of the Mandalorian, and it's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. So Mando is back to bounty hunting. He's on this like Halo-looking artificial city in space. Like it literally looks like something from the game Halo. He's helping the armorer and Paz Vizsla rebuild the Order. She kind of tells him a little bit of the history about how the Empire destroyed Mandalore. They call it the Night of 1,000 Tears. And Mando tells the armorer that he took his helmet off. And she says to him, the only way you can redeem yourself is in the waters beneath the mines of Mandalore. So he's like, all right, I guess I got to figure out how to get there. So Mando he needs a new ship because the Razor Crest was destroyed. So he goes to Tatooine to meet with Pele, gets a new ship, and it's a modified N1 starfighter from the Phantom Menace, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And that whole scene where he's going through Beggar's Canyon, it's the pod racer course for a part of it. So freaking
cool. I love that, like, this is the Queen's Royal Guard or something like that. That was so sick.
Yes. Very, very cool. There's like some indication, I don't know if Filoni said that is intended or
to be Anakin's.
There's like they don't say it, but it could be. Ever. Exactly. And like of all the ships, that's the one that ends up in Mando's hands. Then we get to episode 6. It's titled From the Desert Comes a Stranger, directed by Dave Filoni. So Mando goes to visit Grogu, who is training with Luke. And Luke tells Grogu about Yoda and tries to help him remember his past. And this is where we get a flashback of Order 66 from Revenge of the Sith. So we kind of see a little bit about what happened with Grogu during that time. Mando has this armor that he got for Grogu, leaves it for him, and we get a training montage with Luke and Grogu teaching about the Force. He's doing backflips, and like it's a very cool scene altogether with the two of them. But then Mando goes back to Tatooine to go help with Boba. Really quickly, episode 7, the only thing I think we need to know is that Mando helps Boba take control over Mos Eisley, and him and Grogu are reunited. Grogu basically decides
made the choice.
He's going to go with Mando instead of staying with Luke and training as a Jedi.
And he gets the little Beskar chain link.
I was going to say Mithril from Lord of the Rings.
It's kind of what it is, though. Yeah,
it basically is. And we also see it comes up. It comes up later.
I wish that he got a lightsaber, though. It's so annoying. Come on.
Of course.
Come on, give me Yoda's lightsaber. Come on.
Give him a lightsaber. He's a Jedi, and
come on. I think we'll get
Mandalorian.
There,
he will absolutely get a lightsaber. He will get a helmet. He will get a jetpack. He will get a lightsaber. He will get all of that stuff. I'm putting it out in the universe.
Just not in the movie.
Not in the movie. So that wraps up Boba Fett, and we get into season 3 of The Mandalorian. Episode 1 is called The Apostate, which is what Paz Vizsla calls Mando when he tells him that he took off his helmet. He basically is an apostate now. This episode was directed by Rick Famuyiwa. It is the beginning of this episode starts with the ceremony of a child putting on his mask for the first time. So he's basically taking the creed of their group of Mandalorians. And the kid in that scene is actually played by Jimmy Kimmel's son.
Oh, that's funny. ABC connection.
Cool. Exactly. During the ceremony, there's this giant monster comes out of the water. Mando comes in, saves the day. He goes to the armorer and he's basically like, how can I prove myself? And she's like, you got to go to the waters. He's like, all right, if I can get there and I can prove that I can get there, I'm good. And she's like, yeah, you're good. So he goes back to Navarro. He needs the IG-11 unit from season 1, basically to navigate or to help him navigate Mandalore. These pirates show up. They kill the pirates. Then they try to attack Mando when he's leaving. We meet Gorian Shard, who I put in my notes is old Greg, basically. Pirate old Greg. Then Mando heads to, he goes to Bo-Katan, and he's basically like, help me. I have to go to Mandalore to be in the waters. Help me, and we can see if the planet's habitable. She basically is like, after I didn't get the Darksaber, all of the people that were with me left, so I have nothing. But she's like, if you want to go, here's where the mines are on the planet. So go with God. Then we get to episode 2, titled The Mines of Mandalore. And Mando, because the IG-11 unit wasn't ready to go on Navarro, he goes to Pele to try and get a part for it. But she's like, I don't have the part, but I got this R2 unit. And it's Red 5, who was in A New Hope, who was the original R2 unit that Luke was going to take before he ended up getting R2.
Let's go, Red.
Let's go, Red. And then he's got a bad motivator. So they go to Mandalore. They're on the planet. They find this mutated like alien species living there called Alamites. I think they were there before, but now they're just on the planet. They find out it's breathable. It hasn't been poisoned like they thought before. So he goes into the mines, and Mando is captured by, it's an organic droid. They make it it is a droid, but they show like an eye and there's like some lungs, or it's kind of like a weird Grievous, weird General Grievous, like knockoff kind of thing. But so he tells Grogu, he's like, go back to Bo-Katan, get her to help, and have her come here. So she comes, she kills that droid, which is important. The droid that captured Din Djarin, Mando. And she agrees to take him, show him exactly where the living waters are so he can go and be reborn as a Mandalorian. They go down. She's kind of explaining the history of her family, which is a lot of the stuff that we know from the animated series. He goes into the water and is pulled under. So she jumps in to go save him, and we see the mythosaur, which has been brought up a few times. It's the ancient animal that was ridden by Boba Fett and many other ancient Mandalorians. It's the symbol of Mandalorian culture, basically. Was this like, did you think that this was the general direction the season was going to go, or was this way too lore heavy for you on the Mandalorian side?
It went a little Mandalorian heavy, little Mandalore. Too much, I think, for me. It's a show about the Mandalorian, so it's hard to quibble about it, but I didn't see it going full in this direction, and maybe that's why people like season 3 less, because the show once again kind of changed. It was kind of Western and then going deeper and deeper into the Star Wars of it all, and then it just pivoted and went to more Mandalorian, more religions kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I was excited about it. It was cool to like, because I had seen they show Mandalore in the Clone Wars show, and it's a fully fledged city. It's a beautiful culture. They're still in kind of these like, you see a little bit of it. It's like a destroyed dome shape when they're first flying onto the planet. So you see that fully encompassed and like people living in there. And it's cool from somebody who watched the animated series to see it after the Night of the Thousand Tears when the Empire destroyed everything. So I thought that was cool, but I do agree. I think it was a little more lore heavy. And I also felt like while I was going through these episodes, there's really not too much plot wise going on.
Right.
There's a lot of just like scenes of things that are just happening to get to something eventually, but it's not like anything significant.
Yeah.
So then we get to episode 3 called The Convert, directed by Lee Isaac Chung. So they go back to the moon. It's basically a moon planet that Bo-Katan lives on near Mandalore. And there's a dogfight. They blow up her castle, but they escape out of there. And then we go to Coruscant. And we see Dr. Pershing, and he's speaking in front of a big crowd. He's talking about his cloning work, which we kind of figured out he was doing for the Empire. And we learn about the Amnesty Project, which is where ex-Imperials are allowed to be involved in the New Republic and kind of help out with, I guess, proper society now.
Yeah,
that
like
the New
informants.
Republic has
Yeah.
taken them. Exactly. So he's there with Elia Kane, who worked with Gideon. We've seen her a couple of episodes before, but she's basically just kind of like, hey, Moff, we know where Mando is. Like, that's all she did in the other episodes, but now she's a more significant character. And she kind of takes him under his wing, and she convinces him to continue his cloning research. They go and steal supplies to start up a lab at a decommissioned Star Destroyer, which I thought was pretty cool,
Yeah.
but I'm also like, would they really bring decommissioned Star Destroyers to Coruscant? Like, of all places, would they want to have it there? I guess you could also think about it in Clone Wars and Return or Revenge. They had the facilities to base, like to house all of the clone army.
Right.
And that was the...
It's the wealthy. It's like one of the wealthiest planets. It kind of makes sense a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm saying they had the facilities to house those sorts of buildings.
Yeah.
They had like the earlier versions during the Clone Wars. So I guess it kind of makes sense from that perspective. But so they go in to like try and steal this stuff. And as they're leaving, they get caught by guards. And she basically set him up to get captured. And they put him in a mind flare. And she pushes it to the limit. We don't know if she killed him or not. It looks like that was the intention, but we don't see him again. So
I'm assuming he's gone. Yeah.
We could assume that, but we don't really know. So, then we go back to Mando and Bo-Katan. They go back to the Mandalorian settlement. I don't know if we get a name for the planet that the Mandalorian group is on, but they go back there. Mando proves that he went into the living waters. He basically took a sample back, and the armor was like, yeah, this was it. And then she goes to Bo-Katan. She's like, have you been in the waters, and have you not removed your helmet? She's like, no. And she's like, all right, well, you can be in our cult as long as you don't take your helmet off. And so she's like, all right, I guess I'll ride this out for a little bit. Then we get to episode 4, titled The Foundling. Another Carl Weathers directed episode. And we open with this training montage where Grogu is basically trained fighting with another foundling, and he beats him.
I like that duel. I like that. That's fun, that part.
It's cool with the little like paint dart.
Yeah, I thought that was fun.
And so they fight, and then the foundling, who's the Jimmy Kimmel's son, he gets taken by this like pterodactyl looking monster. They go to try and get the kid back, and Grogu stays with the armorer. She's talking to him about Mandalorian Way and like working through past traumas. And obviously we get another Order 66 flashback.
So good.
But in this one's great. We find out that he was saved by Jedi Kelleran Beck, who was played by Ahmad Best, who originally played Jar Jar Binks in episode 1 of The Phantom Menace.
Love it.
I didn't know it when this episode came out and when that scene first happened. I found out about it after, and it made that scene so much sweeter for me.
Yeah, I love that they brought him
I was so
back.
happy.
Yeah.
I was so happy that he got to have a scene like that. He looks so cool. He saves Baby Yoda. He saves Grogu. Like, it was just so well done. A really cool Order 66 take, because we
wanted more. I even wanted more. Wanted
of
more.
course. Always
give me the whole episode. But yeah, I thought
just
I thought
full
that was fun.
Order 66 episode.
Yeah, but I thought that was fun.
Very, very cool. And I don't know if they explained it at any point, but that ship that they leave on is definitely a Naboo style ship. Could Padme have been somewhat involved, or was there somebody else on Naboo that was friends with Kelleran that was able to like help? Like, who gave them that ship, or have that ship like waiting for them?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's interesting. That's. I mean, maybe Bail Organa, Jimmy Smits.
But he was still Alderaan. And I don't know. I mean, the only ship that we know is like kind of an Alderaan base ship was the one that Leia's escaping on in the beginning of A New Hope.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, it definitely looks like that ship is from Naboo.
Yeah.
So who knows what it was from. But it was just interesting that they specifically used that type of ship to get them out. So then we see Mando and the other Mandalorians are like scaling this mountain to go get the foundling. When they get there, Paz Vizsla tells us that he's his son. There's a really funny scene. I don't know if you picked up on this. He's in like the nest of the animal, and he sees the kid, and he goes, he's alive. And he like jumps up and down. It's so funny when I watched it on the rewatch. I'm like, it's like just a quick shot of him going like, he's alive. Like his hands were in the air, like he was jumping
and then they
for
like
joy. He's like, he's alive. I thought it was like, you gotta watch it. Like, go back and watch it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
so
will.
funny. They eventually save the kid. It like flies out over the water, and then it gets eaten Jurassic Park style. Like the other water animal comes
There's
out. and
always
just
a bigger
eats the
fish.
character. Always a bigger fish. And then Bo-Katan loses like her shoulder piece in the fight, and so she goes back to the armorer. Armorer is making a piece for her. She's like, she asked her like, do you want something like a different signet, or one of her clan's called like the Night Owls? So she asked her if she can do one of a mythosaur, and she starts to like kind of ask the armorer about it, but doesn't want to give her too much information or like dive into it too much. So we kind of leave it on that. Like she's trying to figure out if she actually saw a mythosaur on that planet, or if she was just, in the water and saw something else. Then we get to episode 5 called The Pirate. All right.
Is this the really bad one?
No.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
getting
Okay.
there.
I know it's at the tail end of
But
this
this is
season.
like
Okay.
this is another kind of filler episode, I think. Directed by Peter Ramsey. They're on Navarro, and Gorian Shard, pirate Old Greg, attacks the city kind of in retribution for what Mando did. And then we come to, there's a New Republic fighter bar where Grief Karga basically sends a telegram to Carson Teva to help them. And we meet the character Zeb, which is why I wanted to point the scene out. So Zeb, or his full name is Garazeb Aurelius. He's from the Rebels animated series. He was a main character in the Rebel series, along with Ezra, who's in Ahsoka, and a few other characters. He's just a really cool, he's got this like warrior background. We've seen him in trailers for The Mandalorian and Grogu, so that's why I just wanted to point him out. I've seen him in other clips too for the show, so I know he's going to play possibly a key role. So I just want to make sure that I pointed him out. This is the only time he's in the Mandalorian show, but he will be coming back. So Carson Teva is basically like, we need help. I have to go to Coruscant. And he goes to a New Republic officer played by Tim Meadows. This is a pull me out of it cameo for sure. Like, Tim Meadows is too big to feel like he would be
too
in
random,
Star
too
Wars.
big. Yeah.
Way too much. And while Carson's like pleading his case to Tim to send help, Elliot Kane comes in and she basically stops him. She's like, we don't need this. So Carson Teva finds out, he figures out where Mando is because Red 5 is with them. R5 is with them. He's like, he used to work for the Republic and help them out. So that's how they were able to figure out where he is. They go back to Navarro and they basically have this big battle against the pirates. They duke it out. They save the planet. Awesome. We then give a scene where the armorer is talking to Bo-Katan and she's like, take off your mask. And this seemed like from the beginning, I was kind of like, oh, this is just a ploy to get her to take her mask off and be like, you're out. Like, you did it. I don't care if I told you to do it. You did it. And that's it. But then she's basically like, you've walked in both worlds. Like, you are part of the regular Mandalorian culture and our culture. You've done both. You need to be the one to bring us all together, to help us retake Mandalore. So that's kind of the end of the episode, but we get this little scene at the end where Carson Teva finds a Lambda class ship, which is an Imperial shuttle, basically. And we find out that the ship was destroyed, and we find out that Moff Gideon was on the ship, and he was basically broken out. But they find a little bit of Beskar, so they're trying to frame the Mandalorians on it. That really doesn't like pay off at any point, so I don't know why they did it, but we know that Moff Gideon has escaped, so he's back on the run.
Right.
Then we get to episode 6, Guns for Hire.
This is
directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. But this is probably the most ridiculous
It's the worst.
episode
It's the
of the
worst.
series. The opening with this Mon Calamari and Quarren lovers on a ship. It's like weird Romeo and Juliet, like, I'll die for you, but they're
So
like,
yeah,
they're those two species in the animated series like have multiple episodes where they're fighting each other. So that's why there's like I was thinking Romeo and Juliet. But it's just the whole thing is just ridiculous. Like I remember even on the rewatch, I was like, what the hell?
It's so random. It's so bad. It's like, why even is it even happening? Did these people just walk off their sets? Jack Black, Christopher Lloyd, Lizzo.
Yeah.
It's so yeah.
The whole thing is insane. But yeah, so Mando and Bo-Katan are trying to get the fleet back to join the other Mandos. They go to this planet, plans R-15, like you said, Lizzo, Jack Black, Doc Brown. I mean, okay. Basically, the problem that they're having, there's battle droids that are reprogrammed. They're malfunctioning. They're hurting people. They find one. They chase it down. It leads them to a droid bar, which there's bars for droid, and they drink this thing called Nepenthe, which is like, it's supposed to help their circuits somehow. Whatever. There's these nano droids that are basically altering them to make them do this stuff. We find out Doc Brown was the one that was behind it. Cool. They save the day. They go to the Mandalorian fleet. Bo-Katan challenges the new leader, the guy that took over her group while after they left her because she didn't have the Darksaber. She beats him, but they're still like, you don't have the Darksaber. He's got it, meaning the Din Djarin. But then Mando realizes he got beat down and basically beat in combat by that organic droid. And then Bo-Katan beat the organic droid. So technically, she's the new owner of the Darksaber. So he gives it to her. And that's how that episode ends. Was this is the most out of character that any Disney Star Wars product has felt.
It feels
ever.
the most like TV, and not even like Disney Plus TV. It feels like Xena the Warrior Princess TV, like 90s bad sci-fi. The costumes, the plotting, everything just feels superfluous and bad. It's bad.
We were saying it with Tim Meadows before, like being a cameo that pulls you out of it. Lizzo and Jack Black, absolutely.
It's bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And her character, I don't know how it was or who wrote it in or if it was like her take on it. The fact that she's like obsessed with Baby Yoda, with her, it plays a little too fan theory.
Yeah. It's
like
not. It's not what
it's a little totally too much.
Pulls you out of it.
Absolutely. Then we get on to the next episode. Episode 7 called The Spies, directed by Rick Fumi. And we see basically where Moff Gideon escaped to. And we meet the Shadow Council, which is a committee of Imperial officers. Just a couple of key people in this that I want to point out. So Captain Pelion, who's the guy with the mustache that's talking about Admiral Thrawn, he is the number 2 to Thrawn, which is why he's so heavy on trying to get Thrawn back or to build up the Empire so they're ready for his return. And I decided I was going to try and read some of the Star Wars novels, and the Thrawn series.
I heard it's great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I heard it's great.
And Pelion's a great character in it, but unbelievable books. And I hadn't read it before I saw the show the first time. And so I didn't really know too much about him. But in retrospect, I'm like, great point to put him in this, to talk about Thrawn and to like bring him in and to be like ready to bring him in. And yeah, I think he was just a great choice to have him in this. We also see it's Commandant Hux, who's the father of General Hux, who will be in the sequel movies. And then there's also one general who I don't know the name of, but he is the guy. He's in the trailer scenes of the Mandalorian and Grogu, the AT scenes. He's like the dude with the big gray beard. Mm-hmm. He's in the Shadow Council. So I don't know how that will play into the movie, but he's part of the Shadow Council and will be in the Mandalorian Grogu. So I just had to point that out. So they go back to Navarro. All the Mandalorians are coming together. There's a little bit of tension between the different groups. They're like, we're better than you, blah, 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 whatever. Grief Cargo gives Mando the updated IG unit finally, but the way that they worked around they needed like one part, they couldn't find it. The way they worked around it was they basically made like a driver's seat for Baby Yoda to control the IG unit. So he's basically...
Yeah, I love that.
It's basically like a giant version of Baby Yoda in this IG unit. Really cool. So the Mandalorian group, they basically decided, all right, we're going to go to Mandalore. We're going to find the Forge, resettle the planet, like take back our homeland. They go back to Mandalore. They get to the forge, and before they are able to restart it, they're attacked by these Imperial troops in Beskar armor. They run down this hallway. They get trapped. Moff Gideon shows up. There's a fight. Half of them get out. Half of them get killed. Paz Vizsla is like the last man standing, and these Praetorian guards, who are the red suited figures that have always protected in the prequels. They protected the Chancellor. The original movies, they protected the Emperor. We don't really know. They're there, I guess, to protect Moff Gideon, but they are supposedly like the best fighters in the Empire. So they kill Paz Vizsla. And then we get to the season 3 finale, episode 8, titled "The Return," directed by Rick Fumiyama. He had a lot of episodes in the season. So Mando is like, I'm going after Moff Gideon. He was captured for a little bit, but then he breaks out and he's like, we got to go after Moff Gideon. Him and Grogu are basically together the whole time. Bo goes to get reinforcements to take out the rest of the army. It's basically a huge battle episode. There's Mandalorians fighting, stormtroopers. Everybody's in jetpacks. There's this big aerials, battle between them. There's another aerial battle with the ships that are above the planet. That's really cool. And then you get Grogu, who's fighting the Praetorian guards basically on his own, which is, he gets away with a lot of stuff. Like he's just kind of like slipping around and like basically just barely missing getting hit. And then we get Mando fighting Moff Gideon, who's now in a fully Darksaber, or he's in a fully Beskar Imperial suit, which is
too Vaderish for me. It's
way too Vaderish. Like, it's just kind of like, how can we make this kind of
like a Vader
cool and
threat?
different?
Yeah, it's too Vaderish for me. They could have gone so many different ways, and they go like essentially Vader clone.
Yeah. So Bo-Katan shows up, helps them out. There's a big explosion. Like they take the Imperial ship that they have and they crash it into the base. There's a big fire thing. We get Grogu holding back the flames again to save everybody. Moff Gideon gets engulfed in the flames and quote unquote dies. We don't know. Maybe, probably not. Who knows? But then we go down to the living waters again, and Mando officially adopts Grogu and has to take him on journeys to learn the Mandalorian way. Bo-Katan reignites the Great Fire under the Forge, which signals that they've officially reclaimed Mandalore. And we get Mando. He goes to Carson Teva on that like island planet where we met Zeb. And he goes to Carson. He's basically like, all I want to do is hunt down Imperial remnants and try and get rid of as much of the Empire as possible. Because as long as they're out there, they're going to be coming after Grogu. So that's all I'm doing now. Then they go back to Navarro. Mando and Grogu settle down on a quiet little home out by the lava swamps, I think, or the lava fields. And that's how we end season 3 and currently the series of The Mandalorian.
I have spoken.
Gabe, overall, do you like this show, The Mandalorian?
I like this show. I don't love this show. And I'm not sure how often I'll rewatch it. I like to do binges and marathons, obviously. But and there's like a world where like, oh, I would love to like rewatch all the Star Wars and include Mandalorian in that. But I when like season 1 and maybe some of 2 came out, I thought I could do that. But now when you think about things like the Lizzo and Jack Black episode, I less likely to want to jump into it. So I like Mando with an asterisk. But yeah, I like this show.
I agree. I think if you just gave me season 1 and season 2, I would say I love this show. Season 3 definitely taints it a little bit for me. I liked Boba Fett too. I liked the Mandalorian heavy episodes the best out of that show. But overall, I do like this show. And I agree that there are definitely parts that they could have cleaned up, and they went a little too Mandalorian lore heavy in this 3rd season, and strayed away from the bounty hunter of his character, which I think that they could have done a lot more with. But yeah, overall I like it. I'm excited for the movie. I think my expectations are, or the bar is a little bit lower than I would have liked it to be. It's a Star Wars movie at the end of the day, so like I'm going to be excited no matter what.
Yeah.
But I wish it was a little bit higher, and I think where they ended season 3 has kind of brought me to that point. But overall, yes, I do like the show, and I agree with you. I want to love it, but I'm not quite there. How do you feel about just Star Wars products in general since the Disney purchase? Do you think that they have hit the mark?
We went through this a little bit in the intro, but I'll say no, they have not hit the mark. Have they kept Star Wars in the zeitgeist? Yes. How we're talking about Mando and Grogu and stuff like that. Yes. But there's always a case to be made about, did it do more damage than good, or, you know, how strong would the property have been if you hadn't touched it? Obviously, no one would be talking about Star Wars if nothing had been made since Revenge of the Sith right now. They would still be in the echelon of, you know, our culture, but you know, it's a double-edged dark saber, baby. You know, you get more, but you get less too at the same time. So it's tough. It's a tough way to answer.
That's a really good point, because it's like a balancing act of, you want to give, like, people want more, obviously. Like, people want to know more about the stories and the lore and the history of things, and like how certain characters came to be who they are. But at the same time, sometimes leaving a little bit up to the imagination, or leaving it up to what you think as a viewer and as a person who enjoys the product, sometimes that's better than actually showing something, because you could ruin it, you know?
Yeah.
Like you could
Totally
take away from what people think. Like Boba Fett, I don't think the show and his appearances in The Mandalorian take a lot away from his character, but I think his character is stronger without some of the stuff in both of those, in both shows. Would you consider, I feel like a lot of people would pick and choose certain movies and shows that they consider canon. Like some people would say, like, I don't consider Solo canon. Like,
I can't do that.
like,
I know I'm a purist, even though they don't like the sequel trilogy, and I feel like it ruined the whole Chosen One ending a little bit. It's canon. It is what it is.
I agree. It's tough because there's definitely some things where you watch something or you hear, you know, somebody on social media going like, well, why didn't they just do this, and this? And you're like, that sounds so much better than what they put out. You're like, you could what if everything.
Right.
Any movie, any show, you could say like, well, what if this character did this instead of this? And like, would that have made it better or worse? They put something out, it's got a Star Wars title on it, it's in the Star Wars canon.
Yeah.
If it's on the big screen or on Disney Plus or anywhere else, like if it comes out and it has a Star Wars title attached to it, it is Star Wars, it is canon. I'm sorry for everybody that disagrees with me on that, but that's it. That's how it is.
The way it is now for me is just because there's so much more content with all the shows. I skipped Acolyte, I skipped Skeleton Crew. I just wasn't as interested by that point. So I don't have an issue. I'd rather be in my position where I'm happier to skip certain things than try to watch everything and force myself to love everything. Not everything's made for me. The Acolyte or Skeleton Crew was more of a kids show than anything else. And I'm sure there's parts in there that I probably would have liked, and maybe I'll get to it at another point, or I'll watch it with my kids. But there's just a lot of stuff. So I have to pick and choose now, and I can't be mad about it, really.
Absolutely. And kind of did the point I was making before about like the picking and choosing canon things. Acolyte, most of that show, I would say, if I were going to choose, like I'm considering it canon, but if I had to exclude stuff, I would exclude most of that show except for the very end of it. And I'm sure you saw spoilers, but I'm not going to ruin anything about it.
Yeah.
But so it's tough. I think that they're trying to expand it. At the end of the day, Star Wars is technically for kids.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even if you want to consider Andor in that, it's a very serious show, but it's still Star Wars, so it's still technically supposed to be for kids.
It's for everyone. It's for
It is
everyone.
for everyone.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, but originally it was designed
of
to
course,
be like
yeah.
a space western for kids to be like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
cool, ships and battles and all that stuff. So I think at the end of the day, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, really. But yeah, everything that they put out, I consider canon, and I will see everything that comes out that says Star Wars on it.
Yeah.
All right, so very last question. After having a rewatch of The Mandalorian, are you excited for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie?
I'm excited. We're going to be there opening day, and
Mhm.
I'll have even if I walk out of the movie and we come back next episode, I'm like, I did not like this movie. I always enjoy returning to Star Wars, even if I have my many gripes these days. As I said, every Star Wars fan has issues with Star Wars. It's just part of the medium.
Agreed.
So I'm excited. I'm always excited for it to be back in theaters. And look, we're rich in Star Wars right now. I can't really complain. It's a good problem to have. So we got Mando this year. We got Starfighter. And then who knows after that? So I think at this moment, we've been through some rough patches, but with Filoni and good things on the horizon, we'll be in good hands, I hope.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I'm excited for this movie. Like I said, I'm excited for anything that has a Star Wars title attached to it. I always will give it the benefit of the doubt going into it, no matter what. I think this will be fun, if anything, even if there's issues with it, story, whatever it is, I'm going to have a good time. I think it's going to be a blast. Seeing Star Wars on the big screen, always a good time. And hopefully it's better than some of the reviews that we're seeing currently, But I like The Mandalorian. I like kind of what it's done. Maybe the season didn't end the best way, but I'm hoping that wherever this movie goes, it puts us in a better place than the season 3 ended. So that way, whatever they do with the character next, it has a good stepping stone to kind of go off of.
Yeah.
Whether that be they bring him back into another show, they're working on season 2 of Ahsoka. I think they pushed
they
it
just
a little
announced
bit.
it. Yeah.
But maybe he'll come back up in that show. I think Dave Filoni's working on another movie to kind of tie in all of these characters in the
I
shows.
forgot to mention that. Yeah, that's right.
So there's places for him to come back. Would I love another season? Sure, if they can do it as well as they did. If they could do it as well as they did the end of season 3 or the end of season 2, sign me up immediately.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for the show, for this movie. I am looking forward to breaking it down and talking about it and giving our thoughts next week. And yeah, we'll see what happens from there. Do you have any final thoughts you want to give before we wrap this one up?
No, I have spoken.
Thank God, it's so good. I have spoken. Loved it. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this recap of the show The Mandalorian. Please join us next week for, like we said, our reaction to the movie The Mandalorian and Grogu, which comes out on May 22nd. After that, we're going to continue with our summer movie releases. We're going to be doing Scary Movie, Toy Story, Disclosure Day, Supergirl, a whole bunch of other binges in between. So you hope that you'll join us, and always remember that the movie may be over and the show may be over, but the marathon keeps on going. Peace.
Peace.